Chapter 5075. Nangong Xiaolong was one of the top disciples of the Nangong family. Although he wasn't as strong as Nangong Yuqing, he wasn't much weaker. Naturally, dealing with Bailey Yunyan wouldn't be difficult. Bailey Yunyan's face was pale. She secretly swore that as long as she found the heartless man who hurt Shi'er, she would kill him with her own hands. However, now that the other party was in front of her, she wasn't strong enough. Thinking of this, she hated her own powerlessness. At this moment, Di Xiaofeng directly knocked Nangong Xiaolong down with a punch. Then, am I strong enough? Di Xiaofeng's eyes were as sharp as knives. His entire body exuded a strong, murderous aura. A bright light shone on his body, dazzling him. At this moment, the tyrannical and terrifying aura wasn't concealed in the slightest. His domineering aura was enough to crush everything. Seeing Di Xiaofeng like this, everyone's heart trembled. Di Xiaofeng, Nangong Xiaolong didn't expect Di Xiaofeng to suddenly attack. Caught off guard, two of his teeth were knocked out, causing him to speak with a lisp. A scum like you should have died long ago. Di Xiaofeng's murderous aura didn't weaken in the slightest. He had also seen Bailey Shi. At that time, Bailey Shi's zombie appearance was deeply imprinted in his heart. A good girl suddenly seemed to have lost her soul. How could he not feel distressed? However, this scum in front of him actually dared to talk about it. He wasn't worthy of being called a human. Di Xiaofeng stopped. Nangong Yuqing immediately stood up after seeing Di Xiaofeng attack. Are you bullying my Nangong family? Di Xiaofeng sneered. I saw that your Nangong family had a beast to deal with, so I helped you deal with it. Don't go too far. Nangong Yuqing's face was gloomy. My Nangong family's people are not for you to teach them a lesson. What if I say I have to teach you a lesson? Di Xiaofeng's gaze was ruthless and merciless. His slightly raised eyes narrowed, revealing endless killing intent and threat. Then you'll have to go against my Nangong family. So what if I can't? Di Xiaofeng stomped on Nangong Xiaolong's body. It's not like it's the first day we can't get through. Seeing Di Xiaofeng like this, the cultivators of the Nangong family all stood up. It seemed that today's situation was very difficult to resolve. Xiaofeng, cripple this scum first, Lin Taxing said. Di Xiaofeng nodded and increased the strength of his feet. He wanted to take Nangong Xiaolong's life. Nangong Yuqing moved and attacked Di Xiaofeng. If Nangong Xiaolong was killed in front of him, where would the Nangong family's reputation go? However, Di Xiaofeng kicked Nangong Xiaolong in front of the Bailey family. Seeing this opportunity, the cultivators from the Bailey family would not show mercy. Not only did this damned guy humiliate them in front of so many people, he even treated Bailey Shi like this. They only wished they could kill this guy. Bang, bang, bang. Everyone immediately started punching and kicking. You bastard. Go to hell. I'm going to kill you. You don't deserve to live. Chapter 5076. Big brother, save me. Nangong Xiaolong couldn't help but wail. This situation was completely out of his expectations. He didn't expect that Di Xiaofeng would attack him in order to help Bailey Yunyan vent her anger. Now that he was surrounded by so many people, he didn't even have the chance to stand up. How depressing. Di Xiaofeng, get out of my way. Nangong Yuqing roared. However, Di Xiaofeng didn't care about him at all. He continued to block Nangong Yuqing's way, not giving him a chance to escape. Nangong Yuqing was about to die from anger. In terms of strength, he was comparable to Di Xiaofeng. However, Di Xiaofeng was blocking him, so he couldn't get past him. Most importantly, the number of cultivators from the Di clan and Lin clan had already exceeded theirs. Nangong Xiaolong's wails were getting louder and louder. His internal organs were about to be displaced by these people. It's better to just kill him. Lin Qianqian's eyes were cold. Although she didn't have any relationship with Bailey Shi, as a woman, she couldn't stand such a heartless man. He had broken a woman's heart and completely ruined her life. Yet, he was still acting so carefree and complacent. If he didn't pay the price, the heavens wouldn't tolerate it. At this moment, Bailey Yunyan said, "Don't kill him. I want him to kneel in front of Bailey Shi and admit his mistakes." Even though Bailey Shi's situation had improved, she knew that if she couldn't completely open the knot in her heart, Bailey Yunyan would never be able to live again. She wanted this man to kneel in front of Bailey Shi and beg for mercy, repenting his mistakes. Perhaps this way, Bailey Shi would be free. Hearing this, Lin Xianxian's eyes flashed coldly. That's too easy for this guy. Nangong Xiaolong, who was originally worried about losing his life, was relieved after hearing this. As long as he didn't die today, he would seize the opportunity to teach these people a lesson in the future. Before Nangong Xiaolong could rejoice, Lin Xianxian directly stabbed her sword at him. Didn't you say you wouldn't kill me? Nangong Xiaolong was dumbfounded. He had just gotten a chance to breathe. So how could his life be in danger again? However, the next situation made Nangong Yuqing feel that it would be better to just kill him. A tragic and heartbreaking wail rang out, revealing a deep sense of despair, and it clearly entered everyone's ears. Nangong Yuqing and the others were stunned, not knowing what was going on. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at Lin Xianxian in surprise. They didn't expect Lin Xianxian to be so decisive as to cripple Nangong Yuqing's family jewels with a single strike. Lin Xianxian remained calm despite everyone's stares. This kind of scum only knows how to bully women. It's better to make him unable to be a man so that he won't harm others in the future. Lin Yi nodded in agreement. Sister, well done. Bailey Yunyan couldn't help but be dumbfounded after seeing this scene. She indeed felt that Nangong Xiaolong was hateful, and this thought had also appeared in her mind. However, she was still somewhat afraid of actually doing it. She did not expect Lin Xianxian to be so domineering. When she came back to her senses, she was delighted. Chapter 5077. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang placed a pill into Nangong Xiaolong's mouth. Nangong Xiaolong covered his bloody wound with one hand and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in shock, his face turning pale with fright. What did you feed me? Poison. Bailey Hongzhuang coldly replied. What did you say? Nangong Xiaolong raised his voice, making it sound as sharp as a duck. Why did you feed me poison? You were supposed to die today, but I wanted to give you a chance to repent to Bailey Shi. How could such a shameless scum like you ever have a moment of sincere repentance? Let me tell you, if you don't come with me, you'll lose your life. Bailey Hongzhuang's deep phoenix eyes rippled with a cold light as she stood up and clapped her hands. She looked as if Nangong Xiaolong was some kind of filthy thing. The cultivators present looked at Bailey Yunyan, Lin Xianxian, and Bailey Hongzhuang's smooth plan and actions. They couldn't help but sigh. I didn't expect a woman to be so ruthless. Everyone sighed. However, they didn't have much sympathy for Nangong Xiaolong. After all, this guy really went too far. Bailey Hongzhuang, how dare you poison Xiaolong? Nangong Yuqing's eyes were burning with rage. If looks could kill, Bailey Hongzhuang would have been killed 1,000 times over. So what? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Nangong Yuqing with disdain. Your family likes to raise scum like him, but since he provoked us, he naturally has to pay the price. Damn it, Nangong Yuqing cursed. His complexion was ashen. His Nangong family was a well-known family in the world, but he didn't dare to offend them. But now, the other party didn't care about their reputation. Not only did they cripple Nangong Xiaolong's manhood in front of everyone, they even brazenly poisoned him. If he couldn't get justice today, where would the Nangong family's face go in the future? Looking at Di Xiaofeng and the others in front of him, he knew that his team's strength wasn't enough. He immediately turned his head to Jun Lingxuan and Chu Yingming. Come and help me. Hearing Nangong Yuqing's words, Chu Yingming and Jun Lingxuan looked at him. However, the two of them only watched without showing any signs of wanting to make a move. I won't mistreat you. As soon as he said this, Chu Yingming and Jun Lingxuan's eyes shone with a satisfied light. Naturally, if he wanted to help, he would have to offer some benefits. In the next moment, the cultivators from the Chu family and the Jun family stood up and confronted the people from the Di family. Seeing this, Murong Jing could no longer sit still. He immediately led the cultivators from the Murong family to stand up as well. What? You want a group fight? Murong Jing sneered. We'll accompany you to the end. Di Xiaofeng, today's matter was started by you. If you don't give me an explanation, this matter won't be over. After finding a helper, Nangong Yuqing's confidence was boosted. If it's not over, then it's not over. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Di Xiaofeng sneered. Who started the trouble first? You know in your heart. Di Xiaofeng, don't be too arrogant. Chapter 5078. His calm voice was laced with a hint of threat, giving off an indescribable pressure. That's right. I admit that your D family's strength isn't weak, but you can't use your power to bully others. Jun Lingxuan also spoke out, his deep eyes rippling with a malicious light. He had always been looking for an opportunity to teach them a lesson. As long as he could turn the D family into an existence that everyone despised, that would be the happiest thing for him. What do you want, then? Di Beichen raised his eyebrows, a playful look on his bright and handsome face. An eye for an eye. As long as Di Xiaofeng kneels down and apologizes, this matter will be settled, Jun Lingxuan said. He was clear that Di Xiaofeng would never agree to this request. Therefore, this conflict could not be resolved. Jun Lingxuan, I gave you some face, but you really think you're something? Di Beichen's gaze suddenly froze, and a chilling aura erupted from him. Do you want me to remove this defensive formation? As soon as he said that, Jun Lingxuan's expression froze. He had almost forgotten that this trump card was in Di Beichen's hands. With the existence of this card, they simply couldn't do anything to Di Beichen. The expressions of Nangong Yuqing and the others were unsightly. Unfortunately, this trump card was in Di Beichen's hands. However, if they let this matter go just like that, how would the Nangong family face the world? As he thought of this, Nangong Yuqing couldn't help feeling gloomy. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have allowed Nangong Xiaolong to be so arrogant. Instead, he had stirred up such a mess, leaving no room for negotiation. At this moment, Chun Feng exited his cultivation state and walked over. In my opinion, since this matter has already come to this, we might as well turn this matter into a small one and a small one into nothing, Chun Feng said slowly. Seeing Chun Feng say such sarcastic words at this time, Nangong Yuqing felt even more annoyed. Why didn't you stand up when they were attacking Xiaolong earlier? You're only speaking up now. I was cultivating earlier, Chun Feng said with a calm expression, as if he was stating an extremely normal fact. However, Nangong Yuqing really wanted to slap this guy. Wasn't this obviously a blatant lie? How could they not hear such a loud commotion? Even an idiot would know that Chun Feng was helping Di Xiaofeng on purpose. However, what was the point of him continuing to compete with Chun Feng? Chu Yingming's brows were tightly knitted together. The reason why he had not stood out earlier was also because he had considered this. Under such circumstances, they would not be able to gain the upper hand against Di Beichen and the others. The reason why he stood up for Nangong Yuqing was not only because of the benefits, but also because he wanted Nangong Yuqing to owe him a favor. After all, he and the Di family were already rivals. Even if there was a little conflict, it wouldn't be a big deal. Since we can't stay here any longer, you should leave this place, Di Beichen said slowly. Hearing this, Nangong Yuqing couldn't help but feel anxious. Why should we? The moment they left this place, with their strength, they wouldn't be able to deal with the terrifying beasts outside. Only death would await them. It's fine if you don't want to leave. We'll leave, then. Di Beichen spread his hands with a calm expression. He was about to retract the formation and leave with Di Xiaofeng and the others. Chapter 5079. When the crowd saw Di Beichen preparing to leave, they couldn't help but feel anxious. As long as the formation existed, they would have a chance to survive. Once Di Beichen and the others left, the Di family, Lin family, Murong family, and the Bailey family would naturally be safe, but they would be finished. Nangong Yuqing, if anyone is to leave, it should be you. That's right, this matter is Nangong Xiaolong's fault. After doing such a thing, he's still so shameless. It's already good enough that we didn't kill him directly. I never thought that the Nangong family would have such a scum, but they're so proud of it. It's simply terrible. Staying here will only dirty our eyes. It's better to leave as soon as possible. For a time, everyone pointed their spears at Nangong Yuqing and the others. In the face of their own interests, they didn't care about anything else. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen and couldn't help but ask, "Are you really going to leave?" "I'm just saying." Di Beichen smiled faintly. "But actually, leaving is fine." Hearing Di Beichen's words, everyone immediately understood that this black-bellied guy had already calculated everything. The reason why he said such words was to make Nangong Yuqing and the others angry. Based on the current situation, everyone's spit could drown Nangong Yuqing and the others. There was no need for them to make a move. Brilliant. This move is really brilliant. Di Xiaofeng quietly gave Di Beichen a thumbs up. He knew that leaving wasn't Di Beichen's style. It was to make Nangong Yuqing be despised by everyone. Looking at Nangong Yuqing's increasingly ugly expression, he had to admit that this was really a good move. "Thank you for the compliment." Di Beichen calmly accepted everyone's praise. As for the words black-bellied and fox, he took them all as compliments and accepted them all. Nangong Yuqing stood in place, not knowing what to say in the face of the crowd's clamor. "Nangong Yuqing, think about it." Chun Feng glanced at Nangong Yuqing indifferently before returning to his original spot and continuing his cultivation. He could no longer be bothered with Nangong Yuqing. "In my opinion, it's best to take advantage of this opportunity to drive them away. In any case, these guys have a grudge against us. Why should we protect them?" Lin Xianxian's eyes flashed with resentment and coldness. Especially that Jun Lingxuan. No matter what, he's always around. It's so annoying just looking at him. "You are right. Let's take this opportunity to drive them out." Lin Yi nodded. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other. As long as Nangong Yuqing didn't lower his head, they could use this opportunity to drive these guys away. Chu Yingming immediately sat down after realizing that the situation was unfavorable. His family still had many injured people. Once he left this place, the clan's disciples would definitely lose their lives. He couldn't let such a thing happen. Nangong Yuqing, a wise man, submits to circumstances. Now is not the time to compete, Chu Yingming said in a deep voice. Nangong Yuqing's expression was extremely unsightly. On one side was the pale-faced Nangong Xiaolong. On the other side was the safety of the clan's disciples. He knew very well what choice he should make, but he really couldn't swallow this anger. Revenge is a dish best served cold. Chapter 5080. Young Master Nangong, don't think too much. Nothing is more important than your life. Xiao Shou couldn't help but speak up. Now that the four families were on the same side, it wouldn't be good for them if something happened to the Nangong family. Nangong Yuqing's eyes lit up when he heard Xiao Shou's words. His expression softened a bit. He didn't expect that Xiao Shou would care about him. What a pleasant surprise. Now that Chu Yingming had taken the lead, Nangong Yuqing no longer hesitated. Xiaolong was indeed in the wrong, but you've already taught him a lesson. Why don't we just let it go? Nangong Yuqing slowly said. Seeing Nangong Yuqing take the initiative to soften his words, everyone's expression became very interesting. I didn't expect Nangong Yuqing to take the initiative to admit his mistake. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it. What else can we do? Nangong Yuqing has no way out. Once he leaves, he'll die. Lin Taxing frowned. This guy is really shameless. I wanted to use this opportunity to drive him out, but now he's taking the initiative to soften his words. That won't do. Just drive him out. Lin Xianxian was very persistent. Whenever she thought of this hateful guy, she hoped the heavens would take him away. Nangong Yuqing, we hate each other. You should just leave, Di Xiaofeng coldly said. Nangong Yuqing didn't expect Di Xiaofeng to be so excessive after he softened his words. He wanted to argue, but he also understood that this was what Di Xiaofeng wanted. Once the two sides fought, no one would help him. Nangong Yuqing directly closed his eyes and didn't say anything else. Anyway, he had already made up his mind. As long as he pretended to be dead, Di Beichen wouldn't be able to do anything to him in front of so many people. Noticing Nangong Yuqing's reaction, Di Xiaofeng was stunned for a moment before disbelief appeared on his face. Is this guy acting shamelessly? It seems so. Young master, is Xiaolong's penis going to be destroyed? A cultivator from the Nangong family couldn't help but ask in a low voice. What else can we do? Nangong Yuqing snappily said, If we continue to fight, all of us will die. Nangong Xiaolong fainted when he saw that his elder brother had given up on him. He simply could not believe this fact. From today onwards, Nangong Xiaolong, was no longer a man. When Bailey Hongzhuang was about to discuss with Di Beichun, she found that Di Beichun had already sat down on the ground and started cultivating. However, after feeling the fluctuation of the latter's aura, she immediately understood that Beichun was about to break through. Di Xiaofeng and the others naturally felt it immediately. Their eyes lit up and smiles appeared on their faces. Beichun is about to break through again. Emperor Xiaofeng couldn't help but sigh. The heavenly mandate body is truly extraordinary. I've been watching you guys break through these days. Previously, when Beichun had just returned to the family, his cultivation base had only been at the Starlight Realm. In such a short period of time, he had already broken through to the Nebula Realm. Chapter 5081. In the past, I only heard that the cursed body was a unique constitution of your family. Once it is transformed, it will become extremely powerful. At that time, I didn't pay much attention to it, but now it seems that this constitution is really extraordinarily powerful. Murong Jing's eyes were filled with emotion. Suddenly, she understood why Di Beichun had been wandering outside for so many years. After he came back, the Di family did not have the slightest dispute about the position of young lord. It was because the difference between the upper and lower realms was not reflected in Di Beichun's body. It was not only in Di Beichun, but also in Bailey Hongzhuang. Even their teammates were abnormal existences. Di Xiaofeng smiled brightly. Of course, the unique constitution of our family is not simple. For hundreds of years, there has not been a cultivator of the cursed body in our family, but Beichun obtained this inheritance. Naturally, he is the undisputed young master of our family. Back then, when Beichun was just born, the old man had already made the decision to make him the next young master. Fortunately, although Beichun has not been in the family these years, he is also a dragon among men. Sometimes I feel that perhaps this is God's experience for him. You see, didn't you find a wife who is a match made in heaven? Murong Jing, Lin Taxing, and the others could not help chuckling as Di Xiaofeng's voice fell. What you said really makes sense. Murong Jing nodded in agreement. I think I should also go out to gain experience. Maybe I can find a good wife. Yes, Di Xiaofeng agreed. Why don't you go with Taxing? You both need it anyway. Lin Taxing rolled his eyes. I didn't say anything. Why are you involving me again? Aren't I just concerned about your life? Di Xiaofeng blinked and teased. Come on, I'm so young. I'm not in a hurry. However, after Lin Taxing said this, he met Murong Jing's bitter eyes in the blink of an eye. Taxing, do you mean to say that I'm old? Lin Taxing was slightly taken aback, then quickly waved his hand. I didn't mean that. Then what do you mean? Di Xiaofeng asked as if he wanted to see the world in chaos. I meant for you to shut up. Lin Qianqian could not help but ask. What should we do now? I didn't know Nangong Yuqing was so thick-skinned. In the face of life and death, how could he still care about face? Di Xiaofeng's eyes were filled with mockery. That's all we can do for now. Beichun is breaking through. If we disturb Beichun during this process, it would be bad. This fellow is really something. If he knew that he wasn't a match for us, why did he have to humiliate himself? You want to seek justice for Nangong Xiaolong? What a joke. Although Nangong Yuqing pretended to be cultivating on the surface, he couldn't cultivate in peace under such circumstances. He did not expect to hear Lin Qianqian's ridicule. He almost vomited blood. You were the ones who attacked first, and now you're blaming me. If it weren't for this defensive formation, would I be so sullen? However, no matter how dissatisfied he was at the moment, he could only swallow his anger. He was sure that if he dared to show a trace of dissatisfaction, he would immediately be driven out. As Di Beichun began to concentrate on breaking through, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others stayed by his side. The other cultivators of the Di family and the Lin family continued to go out to hunt demon beasts. Chapter 5082. Master, we had such a great opportunity just now. Why didn't we use it to drive the Nangong family out? Xiaohei sat on Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder and couldn't help but ask the question that had been bothering her. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and poked Xiao Hei's chubby cheeks. Beichen only said that to infuriate everyone's dissatisfaction with Nangong Yuqing. Now that we have both internal and external troubles, if we insist on driving the Nangong family out, he will definitely join forces with the other families. When that time comes, the situation will only become more chaotic. But with so many people attacking together, they won't be able to stop us, right? Xiao Hei's eyes were filled with doubt. On the surface, it seems so. However, when it comes to the real fight, these factions are all very selfish. How many of them are actually doing their best? Moreover, the amount of yuan qi needed to maintain this defensive array every day is astonishing. You don't have to worry. Once we leave this place, we will have plenty of opportunities to deal with them. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Ever since she had fought with them, she had sensed that their strength was not inferior to the other parties. Thus, the worry in her heart had lessened by a lot. Xiao Hei nodded slightly. That's true. Let's take advantage of this time to increase our cultivation. When the time comes, it will be easier to deal with them. As the group of disciples hunted the demonic beasts, the yuan qi accumulated in their bodies increased. Gradually, one by one, the cultivators were on the verge of breaking through. When the crowd saw the cultivators from the Di family, Lin family, and Murong family break through, their eyes were filled with envy. With this defensive array, killing demonic beasts is a great opportunity to increase our cultivation. That's right. Normally, the yuan qi we absorb during cultivation is not as pure as this. Our cultivation speed is also incomparable to now. It's a pity that our injuries have not yet healed, so killing demonic beasts is difficult. We can only watch helplessly. Everyone sighed. This feeling of only being able to watch and not eat was really depressing. When the leaders of the various factions saw this scene, their hearts grew even more anxious. Originally, their strength was on par with each other. However, if Di Beichen took advantage of this opportunity to quickly increase his cultivation, they would be left in the dust. Thinking of this, they began to cultivate with all their might, hoping that their bodies would recover quickly. Yin, rest here. When you want to come out and train, come find me. Di Xiaofeng reminded them. Hearing this, Yin nodded with a smile on her face. Just now, Di Xiaofeng had already settled them down. Shi Yin's success, her heart, filled her with joy. Once she returned, she would definitely tell Shi this news. This damn Nangong Xiaolong actually let Shi down. But now that he had such an ending, it was quite satisfying. She only hoped that Shi would be able to let go of this matter and walk out of it. A's. Thank you. TSST. If you hadn't given us the spots, we wouldn't have been able to enter. Bailey Yunyan's eyes were filled with sincerity. Ever since she met Bailey Hongzhuang, she had helped her a lot. Chapter 5083. Upon hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Bailey Yunyan was slightly taken aback. Her cheeks instantly flushed red. Hongzhuang, we haven't even taken any shape yet. Haven't taken any shape yet? Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Xiaofeng doesn't look like it. Upon seeing Bailey Yunyan's bashful look, Bailey Hongzhuang stopped teasing her and immediately changed the topic. Yunyan, what kind of inheritance did you encounter previously? Is it a coincidence that everyone in your family is together? She had always felt that this was very strange. Just like when she had first entered the Divine Cloud's secret realm, it was extremely difficult for her to find anyone she knew. Naturally, it was even more difficult for Bailey Yunyan to find her family members. After all, there were only a small number of them. However, based on what she had seen, almost all the cultivators from the Bailey family were here. This was very interesting. Hongzhuang, this is really amazing. The inheritance that I've received this time is actually the inheritance from our Bailey family's old ancestor. Upon hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with astonishment. Perhaps the old ancestor wanted to protect us. That's why we've gathered together. Otherwise, there's so many powerful cultivators here. It wouldn't have been easy for us to make it here alive. Bailey Yunyan's fair little face was filled with joy. She was also silently grateful. If it had not been for the old ancestors' protection, they would have lost their lives in the various dangers that everyone had mentioned. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. I see. Although I've received the inheritance, I haven't fully mastered it. I'm afraid that I'll need some time to fully master it. Otherwise, I would have been able to teach Nangong Xiaolong a lesson myself." As she spoke, Bailey Yinyin could not help but look at Nangong Xiaolong on the other side. The hatred in her eyes was still very strong. Nangong Xiaolong could not help but shiver when he sensed her cold glare. However, he did not dare to retort. Now that even his big brother could not protect him, if he were to cause any more trouble, he would not even be able to keep his life. At this moment, even though he was already poisoned, he did not feel too much despair. This was because he was very clear about Bailey Shi's feelings for him. As long as he told Bailey Shi would definitely find a way to help him find the antidote. Then everything would be solved. When Di Beichun successfully broke through to Second Order Nebula, Bailey Hongzhuang also welcomed the opportunity to break through. Not only that, Xiao He and Xiao Bai, but they also had their strengths. Time gradually passed. As the injuries of the cultivators within the defensive Dharma array gradually healed, they were filled with fighting spirit and wanted to join the battle. Over the past few days, they had only been watching others improve, and they had long been impatient. Nai Hongzhuang. Come by Yin Hongzhuang. Is. A look. Is by a look. S's. S's. S-Spies. It was like the world's brightest power. It instantly attracted everyone's attention. A faint and pleasant chanting sound came from the white light. It refreshed the heart and purified the soul. What a rich light energy! Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but exclaim. This power was extremely pure. It was no different from the light energy she displayed. Chapter 5084. This is the first time I've seen such dense and powerful light energy. Xiao Shou stared ahead in a daze, her face revealing shock and yearning, and even a bit of infatuation. What is this place in front of us? Why is there such a dense amount of light energy? Chu Yingming couldn't help but be shocked. This energy was even more shocking than the Assembly's once-in-a-decade chant. If he didn't see it with his own eyes, he would find it hard to believe that there was such a place in the Divine Cloud secret territory. If the cultivators of the Assembly saw this, they would be even more excited. As long as we pass through this group of beasts, we will be able to find out. Di Xiaofeng slowly said. Compared to the demonic beasts in front of him, the place that was emitting the power of light was simply a heavenly existence. As Di Xiaofeng's voice trailed off, everyone's gaze towards the beast became even more heated. They only hoped that they could kill these beasts as soon as possible. Then, they would be able to take a look. It's a pity that the number of beasts is so shocking. If we want to kill all of them, we will have to stay here for a long time. Xiao Baixin sighed. Over the past few days, they have killed a lot of beasts. However, the difference in numbers was still too big. All the beasts in the Divine Cloud secret territory were gathered here. The number of beasts was imaginable. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun exchanged glances. Their gazes were full of anticipation and understanding. It seemed that the inheritance was right in front of them. Xiao He and Xiao Bai's previous mistress was the saint. I think only the saint has this kind of power. Her ink-black eyes were full of shock and admiration. Only when she saw it with her own eyes did she understand how powerful the saint was. Before this, she only had a vague guess. But after experiencing it for herself, the shock she felt affected her heart. Even though there was a huge gap between her capabilities and the saints, as long as she worked hard, the gap would shrink. This feeling was like seeing an infinite amount of hope. Her heart was full of anticipation. However, just as everyone was thinking about how to kill these demonic beasts as soon as possible and head to the place where the light energy was emitted, they suddenly realized that the ruthless aura in the demonic beast's eyes began to dissipate. The demonic beast's gazes gradually calmed down. Listening to the melodious chant, their attacks also stopped, and they began to retreat. Seeing this scene, everyone present couldn't help but be surprised. The power of light is too strong. Even the demonic beasts were purified by it. That's right. The attacks of those demonic beasts just now were so fierce. Just a simple chant was enough to make them let go of the hostility in their hearts. This kind of ability is simply shocking. We're both chanting, but the gap between us is just too big. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed inwardly. Previously, when she was chanting, she felt that the buff effect on the team was not bad. Now, it seemed that they were not on the same level at all. The chanting in front of her was able to make all the demonic beasts give up on attacking in a short period of time. This kind of influence was beyond her imagination. She finally understood why the power of light was so revered. If she could reach the level of the Saint of Light, how terrifying would her power be? Chapter 5085. After the beasts were reformed, they retreated one after another. Only then did everyone walk out of the defensive array. Bathed in the sun again and feeling the warm aura, a relaxed smile appeared on everyone's face. I thought I would definitely lose my life here this time. I didn't expect the tables to turn. Not only did I survive, but I also saw such a magnificent scene. In the next moment, everyone no longer hesitated and quickly walked toward the place where the light power was blooming. They also wanted to know what was blooming with such intense light. According to their judgment, the inheritance was probably in front of them. Master, let's go and have a look. Xiao He rubbed her hands, her face full of expectation. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly and also walked forward at the same time. Before she arrived, she heard a burst of exclamations. Oh my God, there is such a beautiful place. Is this a divine tree? It's so dreamy. This tree knows how to chant. Is it the light divine tree? Bailey Hongzhuang's people quickened their pace and soon saw the scene in front. However, as they saw it clearly, a strong shock emerged in their hearts. In their sight, a towering tree stood. This tree seemed to be able to penetrate the world. Everyone stood in front of it, looking extremely small. Even hundreds of people couldn't surround the thick trunk. The amazing green with starry light made it look like a divine tree. Just looking at it made people admire it and not dare to blaspheme it. The dense power of light was being emitted from the divine tree. As everyone got closer, the power of light became more and more intense. Standing under the tree, one only felt that the whole person was bathed in the light power. All the fatigue in the body began to disappear, and some hidden diseases were also cured. The hardships of the past few days seemed to have dissipated into nothingness. Everyone's faces were full of smiles. They only felt that their bodies were as light as a swallow, having an unprecedented ease. This is the powerful power of the light power. Lin Yi couldn't help but sigh. Why does this scene in front of me make me feel like I'm dreaming? Not to mention you, I also have this feeling. Lin Taxing laughed. This tree is so thick. I'm afraid it has lived here for many years. Deep Beichen sized up the divine tree in front of him. He was also shocked by this scene. This kind of feeling seemed to have already surpassed the scope of what humans could achieve, and the shock it brought was not something that could be compared to the past. Xiao Shou leaned against the tree trunk in surprise, her eyes filled with ecstasy and obsession. That's right, this is the origin of the power of light. The Saint of Light had disappeared for many years. It was because of the appearance of the Saint of Light that they found out that they could cultivate elemental powers. However, the Holy Maiden of Light had disappeared not long after she appeared. Naturally, this inheritance did not have much of a foundation. Many of the current cultivation methods were discovered by the powerhouses of the Holy Light Society. All along, the Holy Light Assembly had been hoping to find the inheritance of the Holy Maiden of Light. As long as they could find the Light Sacred Assembly, they would definitely be revitalized and their influence would be even stronger. However, how difficult was it to find the inheritance? For so many years, no one was able to find it. She had always held the same expectations, but she also understood that the difficulty was too great. Chapter 5086. Standing under the tree of God, Xiao Shou felt that she had countless inspirations. She seemed to have found a way to break through all the obstacles that she had encountered while cultivating the power of light. She was sure that as long as she cultivated by the tree of God for a while, her power of light would definitely increase greatly. Her strength would be far greater than before. She even thought that she had never been able to become the true Holy Maiden of Light. Perhaps she could achieve it through this opportunity. If she could obtain the inheritance of the Holy Maiden of Light, who would have any objections to her succeeding the position of the Holy Maiden of Light? Thinking of this, Xiao Shou could not help but feel happy. However, she subconsciously looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Out of everyone, only Bailey Hongzhuang could pose a threat to her. Bailey Hongzhuang was also sizing up the Tree of God. She realized that after getting close to the Tree of God, her thoughts seemed to have become clearer in an instant. Many problems became simpler than usual. Beichun, I think that cultivating under the Tree of God for a while will be very beneficial for us. Hearing this, Deep Beichun nodded slightly. That's right. This is the inheritance of the Holy Maiden of Light. It's indeed a good opportunity. Xiao He and Xiao Bai had already sat down and began to comprehend the power of light. Ever since they had merged into one, they had dual attributes. In fact, they had dual attributes. It was just that they had not found a way to awaken them previously because of the loss of their memories. Although they had almost lost their lives when Xiao He self-destructed the last time, it was a blessing in disguise. They had actually found the altar of God and recovered their memories. Now, they were much stronger than before. This is really a good place to comprehend and cultivate. Di Xiaofeng smiled. I feel like I'm about to break through. That's right. I've been stuck at this bottleneck for a long time. I didn't expect to touch the barrier of a breakthrough after just standing here for a while. Murong Jing could not hide the joy on his face. He did not say anything else and immediately sat down to meditate and try to break through. This kind of opportunity did not come by at all times. It was not easy for him to feel it, so he had to seize the opportunity. Otherwise, he didn't know when he would be able to break through again. Murong Jing was not the only one. Many cultivators had only stood under the divine tree for a moment before they felt the opportunity to break through. In an instant, more than half of the cultivators began to attempt a breakthrough. Such a grand occasion was obviously impossible to happen on a normal day, but it did happen at this moment. Everyone was immersed in joy, and they realized that the demonic beast that had retreated had also returned. However, before they could even put up their guard, these demonic beasts had already submitted to the divine tree, their eyes shining with reverence. I suddenly understand why these demonic beasts are so strong. The place where this divine tree is located is completely a place where spiritual qi gathers. Bailey Hongzhuang's clear eyes were filled with joy. The corners of her lips curled up slightly. In her line of sight, the dense elemental energy seemed to have condensed into a solid substance and drifted around the tree of God, causing the scene in front of her to look like a fairyland. That's right. I didn't think that there would be such a scene at the back. It's like the world of immortals. Chapter 5087. Among all the cultivators present, besides the light attribute cultivators, the wood attribute cultivators were the happiest. This was because the tree of God exuded a strong life force, which was extremely helpful to the wood attribute cultivators. Cultivating here would result in twice the results with half the effort. Very quickly, all the cultivators surrounded the tree of God and began to meditate and cultivate. This was probably their biggest gain after entering the immortal cloud mystery realm. Not only humans, but even the beasts were cultivating. During this process, some people were even surprised to find that the beasts were not hostile towards them at all. On the contrary, they began to get along with each other. Peace, tranquility, ease. Such a place was truly like a paradise on earth. There was no fighting at all. Everyone had an unprecedented peace in their hearts. At the same time, they also had a deeper understanding of the power of light. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. Di Beichun looked at the excited crowd around him. His handsome brows furrowed slightly. He looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and said, "Wife, I don't know why, but I keep feeling that something is not right here." The warm and pleasant voice was filled with suspicion. Di Beichun looked around suspiciously. Everything looked normal, but he had a strange feeling in his heart. Hearing Di Beichun's words, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "I have the same feeling too." "You too?" Di Beichun raised his brows. His gaze instantly became serious. If he was the only one who had this feeling, perhaps it was just an illusion. However, Since Bailey Hongzhuang also had this feeling, it proved that this strange feeling was real. That's right. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was filled with certainty. Then, she furrowed her brows again. However, I also don't understand what's wrong. Everything looks normal here. In the next moment, Di Beichen called out to Di Xiaofeng, who was cultivating beside him. Beichen, what's the matter? Brother, do you feel that something is wrong here? Emperor Xiaofeng looked around and shook his head blankly. No, what's wrong? Noticing that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were serious and didn't seem to be joking, Di Xiaofeng became more serious and patted Lin Taxing beside him. Star Stomper, do you feel that something is wrong? Wrong. Lin Taxing shook his head. I think everything here is great. I've never felt so good before. My cultivation speed has improved by leaps and bounds. Seeing this, Di Xiaofeng looked at Di Beichen. What's the problem? It's nothing. I just vaguely feel that something is wrong. Di Beichen's deep and charming eyes rippled with a complicated and cautious luster. He began to look around seriously. He didn't believe that it was an illusion. There must be something that they missed. Jun Lingxuan was sitting not far from Di Beichen. After hearing the conversation between Di Beichen and others, he couldn't help but sneer. I'm afraid that Di Beichen is used to being in the limelight. How dare he say that something is wrong under the sacred tree? What a joke. Xiao Shou couldn't help but open her eyes after hearing Jun Lingxuan's words. Looking at Di Beichen, who was frowning, she thought for a moment and understood the key to the problem. Chapter 5088. Following Xiao Shou's words, Jun Lingxuan was stunned for a moment. Then his eyes shone with astonishment. What did you say? Di Beichen has the darkness attribute? That's right. Xiao Shou nodded. He does have the darkness attribute. How did you know? Our family has a very good relationship with the imperial capital. My father told me, so it should be true. When Jun Lingxuan heard this, his voice was very loud. In this quiet environment, it was very abrupt. After hearing Xiao Shou's confirmation, many cultivators opened their eyes, their hearts filled with astonishment. Di Beichen has the darkness attribute? It can't be. As a darkness attribute cultivator, he can actually become the young master. This Di family is really different. I suddenly understand why Di Beichen didn't use his elemental power during the fight. It turns out that he has the darkness attribute. That's why he didn't use it. Everyone discussed spiritedly, their faces filled with realization. This was something that everyone had been wondering about. When they fought with Chu Yingming, everyone believed that as long as Di Beichen used his elemental power, Chu Yingming might not be his opponent. However, Di Beichen didn't show any signs of using his elemental power from beginning to end. It wasn't until now that they connected all the dots that everyone completely understood. Chu Yingming looked at Di Beichen not far away. His malicious eyes lit up, and a trace of relaxation appeared between his brows. Young master, you don't need to worry now. The Chu family disciple smiled. The darkness inheritance has disappeared long ago. Darkness attribute cultivators have no future. Even if he isn't weak now, as long as he can't find a way to cultivate the darkness attribute, his future achievements won't be high. Chu Yingming smiled faintly and nodded. I didn't expect him to have such a fatal flaw. No wonder he didn't want to show it. I was wondering how powerful Di Beichen was. So it turns out that he has the darkness attribute. TSK, what a waste of talent. Nangong Yuqing chuckled. All the unfairness from before seemed to be balanced in an instant, because Di Beichen's future couldn't compare to theirs. So what if he has the darkness attribute? Is there need to make such a fuss? Di's eyes heard everyone's ridicule, and a trace of anger appeared between his brows. There's no future for darkness attribute cultivators. This is an attribute that everyone despises. What can you do? Xiao Sudong ridiculed. Even if our young master has the darkness attribute, isn't he beating you? You, Xiao Sudong speechless. What about me? Am I not speaking the truth? I don't bother. Xiao Jiu here, Di Beichen say. At this moment he sees. Di Xiaofeng and the others looked at Di Beichen with worry. Beichen, are you all right? The darkness attribute has always been despised by others. It's the most disliked attribute. It was precisely because of this that cultivators of the dark attribute often received strange looks from others. Suddenly being treated like this by so many people, one can imagine his mood. Seeing everyone's worry, Di Beichun chuckled. Do I look like someone with a weak heart? Everyone looked at each other in dismay. For a moment, they didn't know how to answer. But this... Chapter 5089. Di Xiaofeng and the others looked at Di Beichun worriedly. Even if he looked indifferent on the surface, he must be feeling a little uncomfortable inside. After all, being looked at strangely by so many people, no one would feel good. Only Bailey Hongzhuang was very calm. She had been with Di Beichun for so long, so she naturally knew how much Di Beichun could bear. Along the way, this kind of thing had already happened countless times. From a moment Di Beichun knew that he had the dark attribute, he was already mentally prepared. Moreover, Di Beichun didn't only have the dark attribute, he also had the light attribute. So Di Beichun has the dark attribute. In that case, he's not suitable for you. Jun Lingxuan looked at Xiao So. You're the holy maiden of light. How can you be with someone with the dark attribute? Xiao So nodded slightly. Before she could speak, Xiao Sudong had already spoken first. Of course. How can a cultivator with his attribute be worthy of my big sister? The faces of the cultivators of the Xiao family were filled with pride. Previously, because Di Beichun had refused the marriage contract with Xiao Se Wu, they felt a burst of shame. They didn't expect that there would be such a thing, and their mentality suddenly changed. It wasn't that Di Beichun rejected Xiao So, but that he wasn't worthy of Xiao So at all. All the cultivators changed their minds almost instantly. Cultivators with the dark attribute were destined to have no future. If it was said that because of Di Beichun's performance before, everyone had a higher opinion of him, but now his status had dropped a lot. No matter how outstanding his performance was now, it was meaningless if he had no future. When Lin Qianqian saw that the people of the Xiao family were mercilessly belittling Di Beichun, a strong anger appeared in her eyes. She immediately took a step forward and said angrily, "So what if he has the dark attribute? Did he kill your father, your mother, or your entire family? Is there a need to do this?" Xiao Sou's expression turned ugly when she heard Ling Qianqian scolding. However, she did not sit back and wait for her death. Everyone knows about the darkness of the power of darkness. Do you need me to remind you? Back then, dark attribute cultivators caused great chaos in the upper realm. If it weren't for the Holy Light Assembly, who knows what kind of situation everyone would be in now. Oh, according to what you're saying, dark attribute cultivators only know how to do bad things? Why do I seem to remember that the only reason you were able to keep your life was because of Beichun? I say, why do you have no conscience at all? You were so obedient when you were begging Beichun for protection. Now you're jumping around. Don't you find it embarrassing? Lin Qianqian looked at Xiao So with a burning gaze that seemed to be able to see through her soul. Xiao So was stunned. Faced with Lin Qianqian's questions, she was speechless. Yes, look at her self-righteous look. She speaks as if people with a light attribute never do bad things. Lin Yi also sneered. You know what kind of person you are. Don't think that you are so great just because you are lucky to awaken the light attribute. If you want to look down on others, wait until you really become the Holy Light Saint. Chapter 5090. Xiao Sou's face darkened when she heard Lin Qianqian's words. Lin Qianqian's words had hit her where it hurt. She didn't care about anything else. The title of the Saintess of the Light had always belonged to her. Even though she knew that she could not become the real Saintess of the Light, she had never thought that the position of the Saintess of the Light would fall into someone else's hands. However, she only realized the danger when Bailey Hongzhuang appeared. Bailey Hongzhuang's various abilities and talents in the light attribute were not weaker than hers. In fact, she was even stronger than her. If the title of the Saintess of the Light were to fall into Bailey Hongzhuang's hands one day, it would be something that she would not be able to accept. He is of the dark attribute, and is destined not to be accepted by others. Xiao Sou's gaze was cold as she turned to look at Bailey Hongzhuang. You will only affect your future by being with him. The Light's Sacred Assembly will not accept you. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. So what? I don't care at all. Do you know that if the light sacred assembly does not accept you, it will be very difficult for you to obtain a high-level light attribute cultivation method in the future? Xiao Shou raised her voice as she stared sharply at Bailey Hongzhuang. She did not believe that Bailey Hongzhuang could truly be unconcerned under such circumstances. However, Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows and smiled proudly. Her delicate and peerless face was filled with a confident brilliance. So what if it's difficult? So what if I don't cultivate the light sacred assembly's cultivation method? Xiao Shou was stunned when she saw Bailey Hongzhuang's nonchalant look. She could tell that Bailey Hongzhuang was speaking from the bottom of her heart. That was the disdain that came from the bottom of her heart. It was as if she did not care about the light sacred assembly at all. This was inconceivable to Lin Qianqian. If a cultivator wanted to cultivate attribute energy, they would have to obtain the cultivation method from the various large guilds. If they could not obtain the cultivation method, it would mean that they had no future. Lin Qianqian could not understand why Bailey Hongzhuang did not care. Compared to Xiao Shou's shock, Bailey Hongzhuang was very calm. Not to mention that the Light Sacred Assembly's cultivation method was not as accurate as hers. Even if the cultivation method was in the hands of the Light Sacred Assembly, she would choose Di Beichun without hesitation. To her, there was no need to choose. Facing such a Bailey Hongzhuang, everyone couldn't help but look at Di Beichun, and their hearts suddenly understood. As husband and wife were of one heart, they were of the same heart. Previously, when Di Beichun protected Bailey Hongzhuang so much, they were very envious of Bailey Hongzhuang for being able to receive such love. But now, Bailey Hongzhuang's performance made them understand that her feelings for Di Beichun were the same. For Di Beichun, she had also sacrificed a lot. For a moment, many men looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with sighs. This kind of relationship was also what every man yearned for. If he was of the darkness attribute, how many women by his side would be as loyal to him as Bailey Hongzhuang? When Murong Jing heard this news, he could not help but be astonished. He really did not expect Di Beichun to be of the darkness attribute. Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude also shocked him. Chapter 5091. Bailey Hongzhuang is too domineering. For Di Beichun, she doesn't even care about her own future. Her singing is even better than Xiao Shou's. I think she has a high chance of winning the competition for the position of the Saint of Light. That's right. Didn't you notice how much Xiao Shou cares about Bailey Hongzhuang? Isn't it because she feels threatened? I think Di Beichun is lucky to have found a woman like Bailey Hongzhuang. No wonder he dotes on her so much. If it were me, I would definitely do the same. When Murong Jing thought of this, the other cultivators naturally didn't overlook it. Bailey Hongzhuang's previous performance had already made everyone understand that she was more outstanding than Xiao Shou. Therefore, everyone guessed that Bailey Hongzhuang would be Xiao Shou's biggest enemy in becoming the Saint of Light. However, no one thought that Bailey Hongzhuang wouldn't care about the position of the Saint of Light so much. Once the Saint of Light had this identity, her influence would be different from the past. Her cultivation resources would also be greatly increased. Logically speaking, no one could ignore such benefits. If it was an ordinary woman, even if the other party was someone she deeply loved, she would probably hesitate. At this moment, the difference between Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao Shou was immediately obvious. Lin Qianqian and the others were also touched after hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words. Di Beichun turned his gaze and smiled at Bailey Hongzhuang. Deep in his eyes, there was a touch of emotion. He knew that to Bailey Hongzhuang, the identity of the Saint of Light wasn't important. However, he also understood that it was because of him. Di Xiaofeng patted Di Beichun's shoulder. Beichun, you really found a good wife. You have to treat Hongzhuang well in the future. If you bully her, even I won't agree. Xiaofeng, don't worry. Think about how Beichun treats Hongzhuang. How could he treat Hongzhuang badly? Lin Qianqian smiled. Di Xiaofeng nodded slightly. That's true. Chu Yingming and Nan Gong Yuqing couldn't help but look deeply at Bailey Hongzhuang, but they didn't say anything. It had to be said that Bailey Hongzhuang's choice made them feel relieved. This was because once Bailey Hongzhuang became the Saintess of the Light, they would be in even more trouble. This problem did not exist now, but they also admired the relationship between Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. Just as everyone was discussing animatedly, the illumination divine trees, chanting, suddenly underwent a change. Seeing this, a trace of doubt appeared in everyone's eyes. Why did the chanting of the divine tree change? It doesn't seem as peaceful as before. Lin Taxing frowned. The previous chanting that was as pleasant as the chirping of birds made people feel calm and fascinated, as if everything was so wonderful. However, the chanting now had a trace of noise, which made people feel uneasy. It was a completely different feeling from before. Hearing Lin Taxing's words, everyone felt the same. Although they didn't feel the specific change, the chanting clearly didn't make them feel as comfortable as before. At this moment, another voice sounded. Look, the look in the eyes of those demon beasts has changed. As soon as this was said, everyone immediately turned their heads to look at the demon beasts. They saw that the calm eyes of those demon beasts were gradually dyed with violence. It was as if they had returned to the time when they were treated as food, without the slightest bit of peace and friendliness. Chapter 5092. When Xiren's expression suddenly changed, revealing a pale and solemn expression. Although he still didn't understand why such an unforeseen event had occurred, he knew that it was definitely not a good thing. These devil beasts aren't going to attack us again, right? Di Xiaofeng's expression tightened, his starry eyes filled with nervousness and worry. One ought to know that they were currently in the vicinity of the divine tree, while the devil beasts were surrounding them, completely surrounding them. The moment these devil beasts attacked, they wouldn't even have a place to retreat. More importantly, with the divine tree's continuous chanting, more and more devil beasts were approaching them. However, before they could think about it carefully, the devil beast had already pounced on them. Roar! The crazy roars were filled with bloodthirst and cruelty. All the devil beasts regarded the humans as their enemies and pounced on them without hesitation. In a split second, miserable shrieks resounded everywhere. Many cultivators couldn't dodge in time and were attacked by the devil beasts, causing them to fall. The cultivators who reacted quickly gathered together to block the attacks of the demonic beasts. However, during the process of fighting, they found that the devil beast attacks were much stronger than before. Previously, when they faced these devil beasts, it was already very difficult to resist. Now, with the eruption of the devil beast's combat power, they were on the verge of collapse. What do we do now? We have no way of leaving this place. Shangguan Yingying's face was filled with anxiety. This sudden change was too unbearable for her to bear. I'm afraid it's the tree's problem. Due to the change in its chanting, the devil beast situation has changed. Di Xiaofeng calmed down immediately. This sudden change was completely due to the divine tree's change. There's nothing we can do. We can't order the tree to change its chanting. Chu Yingming said in a heavy voice with a hint of anger. Damn it, these devil beasts are completely crazy. We can't stop them at all. Nangang Yuqing felt like he was going crazy. No one would be able to withstand such an unforeseen event. He only noticed that in this short period of time, several cultivators from his family had fallen. If this situation wasn't changed quickly, they would all die here. Di Beichun, activate the defensive formation quickly. We will hold on for a while, Chun Feng said hurriedly. This was the only thing they could rely on at the moment. Hearing that, Di Beichun immediately nodded. Without hesitation, he began to set up the defensive formation. When the other cultivators saw this scene, their eyes lit up with hope. Previously, it was Di Beichun's defensive array that kept them alive. If Di Beichun could set up another defensive array, they would still have hope. Look, this tree can actually absorb people's blood essence. Lin Yi's voice was trembling and frightened. She widened her eyes and looked at the green divine tree in front of her in disbelief. Just a moment ago, this tree was exuding an incomparably holy aura. But now it was so cruel and bloody. Hearing Lin Yi's words, everyone turned their eyes and saw a horrifying scene. Branches extended from the divine tree and swept up the cultivators' corpses on the ground, absorbing their blood essence and flesh to strengthen itself. Chapter 5093. Seeing this scene, everyone felt a chill in their hearts, and their hands and feet were cold. The divine tree that they admired so much before was actually so evil. How is this a divine tree? I think it's a tree of death. Jun Lingshuan couldn't help but curse. His handsome face was pale, and the horror on his face couldn't be concealed at all. Do you think this tree deliberately used the power of light to attract all of us here, and then let these beasts deal with us? A strange idea suddenly emerged in Chun Feng's mind. When he first thought of this idea, he felt that it was impossible. But now that he thought about it carefully, if all of this was true, then it was really terrifying. As soon as this remark came out, everyone was stunned at first. After thinking of the possibility, they all felt a chill down their spine. It's too scary. How can there be such an evil tree? Linny only felt a chill in her body. She felt numb from the soles of her feet to her spine. The smell of blood spread in the air. In a short time, many cultivators had fallen. The casualty rate was extremely high. While fighting, everyone couldn't help but look at Di Beichun. They only hoped that Di Beichun's defensive array could be arranged as soon as possible. Otherwise, they really didn't know how long they could hold on. Fortunately, Di Beichun's speed was also extremely fast. After casting it twice in a row, he had become extremely proficient in casting it again. Everyone only saw a flash of light, and an invisible barrier had surrounded them. Seeing this, everyone couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. At least they had a chance to breathe. However, the next scene made everyone's expression change. In their sight, with the fierce attacks of those beasts, the defensive array was constantly fluctuating. It could be broken at any time. The attack power of these beasts is too strong. The defensive array can't resist it, Di Beichun said in a deep voice. Now, he also had some understanding of the power of his defensive array. It was extremely difficult to resist those beasts before. Now, the combat power of these beasts had increased by more than one level compared to before, so it seemed to be in danger. The chanting of this tree has the effect of increasing combat power, and it will make these beasts enter a violent state. I'm afraid it's not a long-term solution to stay in this defensive array. Xiao Sou's face was pale. As the Saint of Light, she could also determine the effect of this divine tree's chanting. This situation made her feel even more hopeless. With Xiao Sou's words, everyone finally understood. However, this was simply a nightmare. Then what should we do? We will all die here. Qiu Baixin couldn't help but feel anxious. If it was possible, he really wished that he didn't enter the Immortal Cloud secret domain. In the past, even when he was training, he had never been in such danger. Don't be anxious. Everyone, think about it carefully. Only by calming down can we find a way to survive. Bailey Hongzhuang's red lips parted slightly. Her fair and glossy face was calm. She knew that once everyone panicked, they would be finished. Hongzhuang is right. Let's think of a way first. Di Xiaofeng nodded. Who knows when the singing will change again? In my opinion, I'm afraid that's not very likely. This tree probably wants to absorb the essence blood, which is why it attracted all of us here. It's too difficult to leave this place alive. Chapter 5094. If we want to live, there's only one way out. Di Beichun suddenly said. What way out? Cut down this tree. As soon as these words came out, everyone was stunned. They only felt their lips dry up, and it became particularly difficult to speak. Cut down this tree? Everyone couldn't help but ask. Even if this tree had become so terrifying now, its previous holy appearance was still engraved in everyone's hearts. Cutting it down like this was something that no one could imagine. This tree isn't some light sacred tree at all. It's very bloodthirsty. Whether it's us or these monsters, we're all just food to it. If we don't destroy it, under its amplification, the monster's attack power will only become stronger and stronger. There's no possibility of us leaving here alive. So we have to cut it down. Di Beichun's voice was resolute and decisive, leaving no room for doubt. Everyone looked at each other. Although they knew that Di Beichun's words were very reasonable, this decision was still somewhat difficult to accept. That's right, we have to cut down this tree. Bailey Hongzhuang was the first to agree. If we don't destroy this tree, even if we die here today, more cultivators will fall in its hands in the future. This tree is simply an evil thing. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was calm. In her eyes, nothing was impossible. Just like how she could transmigrate, it had already proved that many things in this world that didn't exist were actually real. Even if everyone believed that this tree was a sacred tree, she believed that all of this was just a disguise. Bloodthirsty and cruel, that was its nature. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were so sure, Di Xiaofeng and the others naturally didn't doubt it and nodded one after another. Since that's the case, then let's cut down this tree. No, Xiao Shou frowned. But the light energy that this tree has is also real. It can bring endless inspiration to people. What time is it that you're still thinking about this? Do you really want to die here? Lin Qianqian's eyes were filled with disgust. It's fine if you want to die, but don't drag others down with you. Xiao Shou's face paled. She couldn't help but look at Jun Lingxuan. With her strength alone, it was obvious that she could not change everyone's decision. However, Jun Lingxuan hesitated for a moment before saying, "No matter what, our lives are more important. Don't think too much about it. We have to stop this tree from chanting. Otherwise, the ferocious attacks of these demonic beasts are not something we can withstand." As he spoke, Chen Feng looked at Di Beichun and said, "Beichun, you'll be in charge. What should we do next?" Seeing how much Chen Feng trusted him, Di Beichun nodded. "All right then. We are already at the edge of the divine tree. Everyone is divided into two groups. One group will stay outside to fend off the demonic beasts, while the other group will follow me to chop down the tree." Di Beichun made a prompt decision and quickly made the arrangements. Under such circumstances, Chu Yingming and the others did not have any objections. They only cooperated with Di Beichun's arrangements. Xiao Shou was obviously unwilling to chop down the tree. However, no one was willing to listen to her opinion. Di Beichun even directly let her deal with the demonic beasts to avoid trouble. Chapter 5095. After making a decision, the next moment, Di Beichun led everyone to rush towards the giant tree that was chanting. However, the moment they walked out of the defensive formation, the giant tree's branches swept toward them without hesitation, carrying with them a cold, killing intent. The branches were as flexible as vines and carried a powerful force. The moment they touched the cultivators, they were immediately wrapped around and dragged toward the giant tree. Immediately, cries of alarm and screams rose and fell. One of the cultivators was directly wrapped up by the giant tree, and in the blink of an eye, he was turned into a dried corpse. Seeing this, everyone's heart trembled, and their killing intent intensified. They had to completely destroy such an evil thing. "Ziren, save me." Shangguan Yingying's cry of alarm was heard. Everyone found that the vines were pulling Shangguan Yingying's feet and were pulling her backward. Ziren's eyes immediately turned blood red. He immediately pounced forward and stabbed the vines with the sharp sword in his hand. The vines were like human hands. Following Ziren's stab, blood started flowing out. Di Beichun and the rest did not hesitate. At the same time, they rushed forward and cut the vines without hesitation. Only when the vines were cut did the vines that were wrapped around Shangguan Yingying's feet loosen. Shangguan Yingying's face was pale. Obviously, she still had some lingering fear. She was so close to becoming a dried corpse. "I must cut this tree," Shangguan Yingying roared. The lingering fear in her heart transformed into a thick flame of anger. What rotten tree! It actually wanted her life. She had to take this tree's life. Seeing that Shangguan Yingying was still angry, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest understood that she was fine and were relieved. Chen Feng raised his voice and reminded everyone, "This tree's attack power is very strong. We must be careful." Facing this tree, the threat it posed was not any greater than facing those demonic beasts. After everyone realized how powerful this tree was, they had an understanding in their hearts. Their movement techniques were pushed to the limit as they approached the tree at the fastest speed possible. However, as the distance between them got closer and closer, The giant tree's attacks became fiercer and fiercer. If they were not careful, they would be swept away by the vines of the giant tree. Fortunately, everyone worked together. Once they saw a cultivator being attacked, they would rush to the rescue as quickly as possible. Even so, many cultivators still lost their lives instantly. This can't go on. It's too difficult to get close to the divine tree. Di Xiaofeng's face was ashen. They had already tried their best to get closer, but these vines were too annoying. Since we can't get close, let's cut off all these vines. Di Beichen's eyes were filled with determination and ruthlessness. That was the only way they could successfully get close. As soon as he said that, a trace of hesitation flashed in everyone's eyes. However, they quickly became determined. Since there was no other way, this was the only way. Who cares? Since I'm going to die regardless of whether I fight or not, I might as well fight with my life on the line. Who knows? I might even have a chance of survival. Lin Taxing's voice was resolute. He was ready to die at worst. However, even if he was going to die, he would drag this tree down with him. After hearing this, the eyes of those who were still hesitating flashed with a strong fighting spirit. Chapter 5096. In the face of death, everyone's fighting spirit was ignited. They were all well-known figures among cultivators. If the other party wanted to take their lives, it would not be an easy task. Immediately, everyone started to move. Bailey Hongzhuang held the silk cutter in her hand. Facing the sweeping vines, her body turned into a flash of lightning as the sharp blade in her hand pierced out mercilessly. Ding, ding, ding. The sound of metal resounded. Everyone was trying to cut the vines. The huge tree seemed to have sensed everyone's thoughts. Immediately, even more vines appeared, intending to strangle everyone. Countless vines were like the hands of a devil, covering the sky and covering the earth as they swept over. Everyone could only focus on blocking. If they were careless, their bodies would be bound by the vines, and they would lose their ability to fight. As everyone stopped trying to get close to the tree, they shifted their focus to the vines. Soon, a lot of vines were cut off by everyone. The huge tree's chanting became more and more berserk. That sound caused everyone's ears to hurt. The devil beasts seemed to have entered a berserk state as their attacks became extremely terrifying. Come back quickly. We can't hold on here anymore. Chu Yingming shouted with a pale face. As all the devil beasts entered a berserk state, cracks started to appear on the defensive formation. It was obvious that it would break soon. Once the defensive formation disappeared, he had no doubt that they would become food for these devil beasts at the fastest speed possible. Hearing the sounds of collapse from behind, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression tightened. They can't hold on anymore. We have to go back and help. Di Beichun turned around. Indeed, the devil beast attacks were densely packed. Their eyes were bloodshot, obviously not in a normal state. Let's go back first. We'll come back later. Chen Feng's eyes were filled with unwillingness. However, he still helplessly made the decision. Now, he was very sure that the problem was with this huge tree. As long as they could cut down this tree, at least the devil beast attacks would not be so strong. Unfortunately, it was extremely difficult to cut down this huge tree in a short period of time. Currently, they were truly troubled by both internal and external troubles. They could not split themselves up. On one side was a giant tree that could not be taken down for a long time, and on the other side was a teammate who could collapse at any time. Everyone quickly made a decision and quickly returned to the team. However, they also understood that as long as they could temporarily block these demonic beasts, they had to come and cut down this tree. Otherwise, the rest would be endless trouble. After Di Beichun returned to the team, he immediately reinforced the defensive array. These demonic beasts are completely crazy. There's no way to stop them. Chu Yingming's complexion was extremely ugly. This situation made him feel that he was very close to death. We have to think of a way. Even if there's a defensive formation, it won't be long before it's completely destroyed under the attacks of these demon beasts. Nangong Yuqing said with an anxious expression, his voice unconsciously becoming sharp. But other than resisting, what else can we do? Di Xiaofeng frowned. Everyone, if you have any trump cards, don't hide them. Hurry up and use them. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. At this juncture of life and death, who would still be in a mood to hide their trump cards? However, the problem was that there was nothing they could do. Even if they had the strongest moves, facing these endless waves of demonic beasts, how much of an effect could they have? The next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly took out several porcelain bottles. Chapter 5097. These are all poisonous powders. Bailey Hongzhuang's calm eyes were cold and serious. There was no trace of panic on her face. It would be difficult for her poison to poison people. After all, everyone was very cautious. Before they even got close, it was very likely that they would be discovered. However, when dealing with these demonic beasts, there was no need to worry about this. After all, the intelligence of these demonic beasts could not be compared to that of humans. Can this poison kill these demonic beasts? Everyone's eyes lit up. If this poison had such an effect, then everyone could breathe a sigh of relief. However, Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. These demonic beasts are very strong. It won't be easy to poison them to death. Hearing this, everyone's eyes dimmed. If it couldn't kill the demonic beasts, then what was the point of using this poison powder? Although this poison powder can't kill the demonic beasts, it has a certain paralyzing effect. It can slow down the demonic beast's attack speed. It should be able to improve our situation. After hearing this, the gloomy crowd had a trace of hope. No matter what, as long as it could weaken the demonic beast's attack power, it was a good thing for them. Hongzhuang, quickly try it. Shangguan Yingying hurriedly said. Others might not know, but she had some understanding of Bailey Hongzhuang's poison techniques. Since she said so, then it proved that the effect was not weak. It would definitely be alleviated. Bailey Hongzhuang did not hesitate. The first thing she did was to scatter the poison powder. As long as it could give everyone a chance to breathe, it was excellent. Xiao Suo looked at Bailey Hongzhuang using the poison powder and did not have any expectations in her heart. At their level of strength, unless they had extraordinary poison techniques, it would be very difficult to achieve any effect. After the poison powder was used, everyone was looking forward to the effect. However, the demonic beast's attack power did not decrease at all, as if nothing had happened. Bailey Hongzhuang, your poison powder has no effect at all. Jun Lingxuan could not help but say, with a hint of annoyance and dissatisfaction. What are you mumbling about? If you have the ability, then find a way. Shangguan Yingying immediately retorted, her eyes filled with anger. I'm too lazy to talk to you. Just when everyone was sure that the poison powder didn't have any effect, they realized that the attack power of the demonic beast had indeed weakened a lot. It works. This poison powder is really effective. Everyone was pleasantly surprised. They keenly discovered that the demonic beast's eyes had become numb, and its limbs had also become stiff. Seeing this, everyone no longer hesitated and immediately unleashed their strongest battle strength. With such an opportunity, if he didn't kill the demonic beast as soon as possible, when would he get another chance? The sound of the fluctuation of yuan power continued to reverberate. The earth-shattering sound resounded, enveloping the entire area as if it was the end of the world. The corpses of the demonic beasts began to pile up with the defensive array as the center. The number was astonishing. However, compared to the endless demonic beasts behind them, this kind of progress did not make them feel any joy. Although the speed at which we kill the demonic beasts is fast, the speed at which our essence energy is consumed is also very fast. If this continues, we will only be exhausted to death in the end. Chun Feng had a complicated expression on his face. The situation before him was akin to an unsolvable puzzle. He simply couldn't find a way out. Chapter 5098. Hearing Di Beichen's words, Chun Feng nodded his head slightly. This was indeed the only method they could think of. However, with the current situation, they were unable to do anything else. The next second, he turned his head and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Miss Bailey, how much poison powder do you have on you? Can you still allow everyone to hold on for a bit longer? Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood Chun Feng's thoughts. However, she shook her head helplessly. I don't have a lot of poison powder. I'm afraid I can only hold on for a while. However, to deal with this huge tree is not something that can be done in a short period of time. I'm afraid we won't be able to hold on until then. Bailey Hongzhuang's bright eyes were filled with seriousness. Facing this, she felt extremely helpless. As her cultivation increased, she understood that it was extremely difficult to use poison to deal with cultivators. Hence, she did not bring too much with her. No one had expected that they would encounter such a situation after entering the Immortal Cloud's secret realm. At this moment, it was too late for regrets. Hearing this, Chen Feng could not help but sigh. This was the best method he could think of at the moment. However, he was unable to implement it. After everyone found out that there was not much poison powder left, they felt despair in their hearts. Ever since they entered the Immortal Cloud's secret realm, everyone had been wandering around in despair. It was truly causing them to break down. The next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang's spiritual sense surged as her hands formed seals without stop. One after another, complex and mysterious hand seals quietly appeared. Master, noticing Bailey Hongzhuang's hand seals, Xiaohei immediately realized what her master was doing. This was her master's trump card. If it was any other time, she would not be willing to reveal it so early in front of others. There is no other way now. No matter what, it's good to hold on for a while longer. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was solemn. She had already used up all the poison powder in her hands. It was likely that she would not be able to hold on for more than an incense's time. After an incense's time, everyone would fall into despair. At this time, how could she still care about hiding her trump card? When the others saw Bailey Hongzhuang's actions, they were also puzzled. Even if she wanted to attack, she should be standing at the periphery. Why was Bailey Hongzhuang standing at the center and using her hand seals? Only Xiao Shou and Jun Lingxuan immediately understood what was going on. Last time, they had also seen Bailey Hongzhuang use such a hand seal. That gigantic Qilin lion beast was like a nightmare to them. Even now, they still had lingering fears. Just as everyone was feeling puzzled, a door that seemed to have come from hell appeared before them. Black and crimson light intertwined, exuding a profound and strange aura. The endless, mysterious aura instantly attracted everyone's attention. What method is this? Nangong Yuqing was puzzled. The door in front of him was solid and didn't look like it was made of elemental energy. Even though the images they conjured with their origin energy were very realistic, there was still a gap between them and the current situation. Just as everyone was secretly guessing, a beastly roar suddenly came from the tightly shut door. Then, the door suddenly opened. A majestic Qilin lion beast appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Its huge body exuded endless majesty. It was like a primordial beast with an incomparably tyrannical strength. Just one look was enough to make people feel fear. Chapter 5099. Qilin. It's actually a Qilin. Everyone cried out in alarm. Although they only knew the description of the Qilin, they had never seen it with their own eyes. However, at this moment, as they looked at the majestic and huge demonic beast in front of them, they were able to recognize it immediately. Heavens! Bailey Hongzhuang actually has a Qilin? That's too scary. That's impossible. Bailey Hongzhuang clearly has a contracted beast. Furthermore, from the way I see it, it doesn't seem like it came out from the contracted space. After a short moment of shock, everyone recovered from their shock. Their eyes were filled with contemplation. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they would have found it hard to believe. However, even if they had seen it with their own eyes, the doubt in their hearts wouldn't disappear. Numerous gazes of admiration landed on Bailey Hongzhuang. Just from the aura she was emitting, it was clear that she had reached the high level of the nebula realm. Such a contracted beast was simply everyone's dream. When Chu Yingming and Nangong Yuqing saw the Qilin, their hearts chilled. Fortunately, when Bailey Hongzhuang fought with them, she didn't use this ability. Otherwise, how could they be her match? How could they be Bailey Hongzhuang's match? Just this Qilin lion alone was enough to completely crush them. The gap between the two was too big. Who would have thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would have such a trump card? With this, among all the cultivators who had entered the Immortal Cloud secret domain, there was no one who could be Bailey Hongzhuang's match. Chen Feng stared blankly at this scene. Suddenly, a thought appeared in his mind. a taboo technique. Taboo techniques were known as taboo due to their extreme power. These taboo techniques were usually in the hands of a small number of cultivators. They had only read about them in books, but had never seen them before. As far as he knew, taboo techniques had disappeared many years ago. Similar to taboo cultivation methods, they had long disappeared from everyone's sight. He was sure that this Qilin wasn't Bailey Hongzhuang's demonic beast. Otherwise, she wouldn't have needed to use her hand seal. Therefore, he was sure that this was a taboo technique. When Chen Feng thought of this possibility, a trace of astonishment appeared in Chu Yingming's eyes. Could this be a forbidden technique? His cold voice was filled with shock and disbelief. Even though he was the one speaking, he was still doubting his own guess. As Chu Yingming's voice fell, the confused crowd seemed to have found a breakthrough point and immediately understood. That's right, this must be a forbidden technique. Only a taboo technique can be so powerful. Otherwise, Bailey Hongzhuang would never have such a contract beast. I heard that taboo techniques are connected to taboo techniques. Since Bailey Hongzhuang is able to use taboo techniques, it proves that the technique she practices is a taboo technique. Everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in shock. When they thought of the various powerful displays that Bailey Hongzhuang had displayed, they immediately understood. Why was Bailey Hongzhuang so outstanding even though she came from the lower realm? How could she learn so many abilities at the same time? This was something that no one could understand. However, after thinking about the taboo cultivation technique, they suddenly figured it out. Chapter 5100. It's rumored that the taboo technique has long disappeared. How did it fall into Bailey Hongzhuang's hands? For a moment, everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with fervent gazes. This kind of method was really too enviable. Di Xiaofeng and the rest were also astonished. Previously, when they heard from Di Beiqin and Mo Yunjue that Bailey Hongzhuang defeated the joint forces of Xiao Shou and the rest, they didn't believe it and thought it was a joke. Now that they saw such means, they understood that everything before was true. Such talent and strength were truly too terrifying. Facing everyone's gazes, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't spare any attention to pay attention to them. With a thought, the Qilin Lion received her command and started to deal with the demonic beast together with everyone else. Everyone, don't be distracted. The most important thing now is to kill the demonic beasts. Chen Feng reminded everyone. Due to the Qilin Lion's appearance being too shocking, a lot of cultivators were distracted. In this short period of time, several cultivators were injured. Everyone had to regain their senses as soon as possible. Otherwise, once the number of casualties increased, it would only be more troublesome. Hearing this, everyone also regained their senses. No matter how envious Bailey Hongzhuang's taboo technique was, they had to at least survive. After Bailey Hongzhuang summoned the Qilin Lion, she didn't stop there. She was still trying to summon other demonic beasts. Now, her cultivation had increased compared to before. Her spiritual energy had also increased a lot. Therefore, she still had the ability to summon another demonic beast. However, this demonic beast was naturally inferior to the Qilin Lion. Next, under everyone's gaze, a huge centipede appeared. After the first shock, everyone calmed down. However, they felt more and more that Bailey Hongzhuang was powerful and terrifying. No wonder she didn't care about the position of the Holy Maiden. With her strength, everyone could imagine that it wouldn't be long before she reached a height that everyone could only look up to. Abnormal. This was simply too abnormal. With the appearance of the two demonic beasts, everyone immediately felt that the situation was more relaxed than before. After all, the Qilin Lion was so powerful that it could wipe out a whole area the moment it appeared. This kind of hunting speed of demonic beasts was many times faster than theirs. Seeing that the situation was turning for the better, a trace of joy appeared on everyone's faces. When they looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest again, they felt that these people were like an inexhaustible treasure. Every time they were in trouble, they could always come up with a better solution. If it wasn't for Di Beiqin and Bailey Hongzhuang, they would have died. They wouldn't be able to hold on until now. If we can survive this time, If anyone dares to have any greedy thoughts towards Bailey Hongzhuang, I will be the first to punish them." Chun Feng's firm and resolute voice resounded in everyone's ears with a warning. He understood that if the situation was not too urgent, Bailey Hongzhuang would not be willing to reveal this secret in front of everyone. This was too enviable, Once this was spread out, it would bring Bailey Hongzhuang a lot of trouble. Therefore, regardless of whether his warning was effective or not, he had to make his stance clear. This was his decision. Chapter 5101. Along with Chun Feng's words, even the expressions of those who were in the midst of battle changed slightly. However, soon, everyone understood Chun Feng's intention. That's right. If it weren't for them, we wouldn't even be able to keep our lives. If anyone still dares to make a move against them, then they're truly worse than pigs and dogs. Yeah, they were the ones who saved our lives previously. As long as we can leave this place alive, no matter what, I will owe the D family a huge favor. The cultivators from the various powers expressed their opinions one after another. Although they had always been living in an environment where benefits were valued, at least they still had some humanity left in them. Regardless of whether the other party had saved them on purpose or not, it was a fact that they had been saved. This was not only due to the numerous dangers they were currently facing. A lot of them had already received the favor of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others when they were still in the Radiant Ruins. It was just that they had never said it out loud all this while. Now that they heard Chun Feng's suggestion, the conscience in their hearts was awakened. The methods displayed by Bailey Hongzhuang were indeed very tempting. However, at least during this period of time, if they were to covet Bailey Hongzhuang's methods and make a move against him, it would truly be inexcusable. After one or two cultivators expressed their opinions, the other cultivators also expressed their opinions one after another. Emotions had always influenced each other. In a short period of time, all the cultivators had the same thoughts. After Jun Lingxuan and the others heard what everyone said, their expressions became unsightly. They were already enemies with Di Beichun and the others. Previously, they had been hoping to kill them as soon as possible. Now that they saw Bailey Hongzhuang's methods, they naturally wanted to get their hands on this taboo art as soon as possible. However, all the cultivators had already expressed their opinions. If they still persisted with their previous thoughts, they would definitely be spurned by everyone. Hence, they could only maintain their silence. Chu Yingming's expression was flickering. He understood in his heart that no matter how one looked at it, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had helped them. However, who asked them to be their opponents? He regretted joining forces with Jun Lingxuan and the others to deal with Di Beichun back then, which led to the current situation. After Bailey Hongzhuang summoned the two demon beasts, the situation of the battle turned for the better. Everyone relaxed a lot. Of course, this was only relative. The attacks of the demonic beasts were equally ferocious. The cultivators had to fend off the demonic beasts from all directions. Everything seemed to have returned to how it was in the past. He was constantly hunting demonic beasts and raising his cultivation at the same time. However, the situation didn't improve for long. The giant tree seemed to realize that it couldn't achieve its goal and suddenly became angry. That's right, he was furious. Even though the tree didn't do anything, everyone could clearly feel the change in the tree's mood. It was dissatisfied and expressed its feelings through the chant. Immediately after, everyone realized that the tree's chanting had become even louder. It carried an incomparably manic aura, and the entire sky seemed to have become oppressive. Seeing this, everyone couldn't help but reveal a trace of fear on their faces. The giant tree's singing was too frightening. Even they felt that their emotions were affected. The demonic beasts seemed to have gone mad, and their attacks became even more terrifying. No one doubted that as long as they were distracted for a moment, they would be torn to pieces in an instant. Chapter 5102. This tree wants all of us to die here. Even if I have to die, I will chop this tree down. Everyone's eyes were filled with hatred. If it weren't for this tree, they wouldn't have ended up in such a state. Obviously, this tree was waiting for them to die so that it could absorb their blood essence. Therefore, when it saw that their situation was getting better, it started thinking of ways to provoke the madness of these beasts. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with anger as well. This huge tree was too evil. It wanted to kill all of them here. Even if they didn't know what had happened in the past, it was easy to guess that a lot of cultivators had died at the hands of this huge tree. Previously, it had used its pure and holy appearance to attract everyone's worship. After gaining everyone's trust, it started attacking them. This feeling was as if it had been treating them like toys, toying with them in the palm of its hand all along. Previously, we actually worshipped this tree so much. Now that I think about it, I feel that we were extremely stupid. Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but curse. She really wanted to destroy this tree. However, the current situation made her realize that it was already extremely difficult to defend against the attacks of these beasts, let alone this tree. We can't go on like this. Even with the Qilin lion, we won't be able to hold on for long. In their line of sight, although the Qilin lion's combat power was still extremely shocking, everyone could clearly feel that the Qilin lion's elemental energy was depleting at an extremely fast speed. Not only that, the chanting was clearly reducing the Qilin lion's combat power. The moment the Qilin lion's elemental energy was exhausted, they would be in an extremely miserable state. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. At this moment, she really couldn't think of any solution. Die here? She would never accept that. An indescribable feeling of despair enveloped everyone's heart. At this moment, there was really no hope left. Many cultivators shifted their gaze to Di Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang. However, they also understood that Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest had already done their best. At this moment, what else could they do to change the situation? Chun Feng and the rest sank into silence. As the strongest cultivator here, his combat power was indeed not weak. Even so, it was impossible for them to break through this group of demonic beasts. At this moment, everyone suddenly felt an oppressive force erupting from Di Beichun's body. Sensing this power, everyone immediately understood that this was the power of darkness. This power was deep and oppressive, causing everyone's hearts to become heavy for no reason. Then, they watched as Di Beichun continued to use the power of darkness, but they did not understand what he was trying to do. In fact, although everyone had always known about the existence of dark energy, they had very little contact with it. Not for any other reason, but because everyone rejected the power of darkness. Normally, practitioners of the power of darkness would not reveal their attributes, and it was even more impossible for them to see the other party use it. Every time a dark energy cultivator appeared, they would be suppressed or even hunted down by others. Not only that, but because the inheritance of the power of darkness had been lost for many years, the combat power of darkness cultivators was not strong. Chapter 5103. Now that they saw Di Beichun display his dark force, they didn't have much expectations. After all, the dark force inheritance had disappeared for so many years, so it was impossible for Di Beichun to have a deep understanding of it. Even though everyone knew that dark attribute cultivators were extremely powerful existences in the past, that was only in the historical records. In reality, it was impossible. Bailey Hongzhuang stared at Di Beichun's actions. The moment he made his move, she had already guessed Di Beichun's plan. Di Beichun flipped his hands, and a round ball of dark force appeared between his hands. It constantly rotated, revealing a profound and mysterious aura. With the appearance of this black ball, everyone felt the aura become more and more condensed, and for some reason, it became heavy. I wonder what Di Beichun is doing. Nangong Yuqing raised his eyebrows. He had never seen such a method before. Who cares what he's doing? Jun Lingxuan rolled his eyes. Let's not talk about the fact that the dark force is useless. Even if his dark force isn't weak, the martial skill he's using now won't be of much use. Can it kill all these demonic beasts? As soon as these words came out, everyone's heart sank. Indeed, no matter what kind of martial skill Di Beichun displayed at this moment, unless it could kill all of the monsters in front of them, it wouldn't have much of an effect. On the contrary, Di Beichun would lose even more yuanli. When the black ball in Di Beichun's hand rotated to the extreme, he suddenly bit the tip of his tongue, and a drop of blood essence shot out and merged with the black ball. As the drop of blood essence fused into the black ball, a trace of red color suddenly appeared. This drop of blood essence was like the finishing touch, dyeing the originally dark ball with a blood-red light. The blood-red light was like lightning, constantly shuttling back and forth within the ball. Then, everyone felt an incomparably powerful aura emerge from the black ball. The wind whistled, and the world seemed to darken. The black sphere contained an incomparably shocking and bizarre power, attracting everyone's attention. Inexplicably, everyone only felt that this energy ball was extremely terrifying. The aura produced by it gave them an indescribable feeling of palpitations. Bachin stood in the middle of the crowd. His white robe seemed to have been dyed black. The wind blew past his face, and his black hair fluttered in the wind. He was mysterious and beautiful. At this moment, he was like the god of darkness. He possessed the most mysterious and powerful power in the world, shocking everyone. Then, with the movement of Bachin's hands and the chanting of Sanskrit, a wisp of energy shot out from the black ball and entered the ground. Wisps of black smoke rose from the ground, and everyone looked at this scene in shock. If Bailey Hongzhuang's taboo technique had already shocked them, then Bachin's actions had shocked them from the bottom of their hearts. This was a mysterious power that they had never encountered before, and it made them submit to it from the bottom of their hearts. In the next moment, everyone felt the ground squirm, and a dense dark energy emerged from the ground. What is Bachin doing? Nangong Yuqing's eyes widened, and his voice trembled. It was too terrifying. Everything Bachin did was too terrifying. Chapter 5104. It wasn't just Nangong Yuqing. Everyone present had the same thought in their minds. This Bachin was simply an invincible existence. Xiao Sou stared blankly at Bachin in the middle of the crowd. That fierce and intimidating aura made people not even have the courage to look up at him. He was like a god of war. Just one look was enough to destroy everything. Xiaofeng and the others also looked at this scene in disbelief. They never knew that Bachin had such a trump card. Xiaofeng, you've hidden it too deeply, haven't you? Murong Jing's face stiffened. Just based on Bachin's means, your family can become a first-class family in the future. Although it wasn't easy for such a huge family to be strengthened or weakened, in the end, it was still a matter of strength. With the strength that Bachin and Bailey Hongzhuang had shown, even if they weren't a match for some old monsters now, as long as they were given enough time, once they developed, they would be completely abnormal existences in the future. Who dared to touch a single hair of the family? Wasn't that tantamount to courting death? I'm not hiding this from you. This is the first time I've heard of it. Xiaofeng swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Even if he was usually indifferent, when faced with such a situation, it was difficult for him to control his expression. Really? Murong Jing was dumbfounded. Even you don't know? Why would I lie to you about this kind of thing? Do you think I'm faking it? Xiaofeng's voice contained a trace of roar, but it was more of a surprise. The stronger Bachin was, the better the family's future would be. This was naturally what he was most happy to see. His own little brother was actually such a powerful existence. If his father and mother saw this scene, they would be even more surprised. As the wisp of black gas spread out from the ground, under the shocked gazes of countless people, skeletons climbed up from the ground one by one. Skeletons, so many skeletons. Heavens, why are there so many skeletons here? I've heard that dark attribute cultivators can summon skeletons. Could it be that Bachin is summoning an army of skeletons to deal with these demon beasts? Soon, everyone had already connected the dots to Bachin's motive for doing this. It was obviously not enough to rely on their own abilities to deal with these demonic beasts. In a group battle, the number of people was the most important. If Bachin could summon an army of skeletons, then this situation could really be alleviated. Bachin's face gradually turned pale. Even though his strength had increased, it was still extremely difficult for him to summon such a large number of skeletons. Even if he used his essence blood, it would be extremely difficult for him to continue. When Xiao Bai saw this, she immediately transferred the dark energy in her body into the dark sphere in Bachin's hands. There must be enough dark energy in order to summon more skeletons. At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang quietly approached Deep Beichun, and the dark energy in her body also quietly flowed into the sphere. Xiao hated the same, but it and Bailey Hongzhuang's movements were very secretive. Dual attributes, such a talent, they did not want to expose it to others for the time being. Fortunately, Deep Beichun only sent out dark energy. At this time, no one would notice Bailey Hongzhuang's situation at all. Chapter 5105. As Bailey Hongzhuang and the two demonic beasts' dark energy poured in, the energy in the light ball became more and more intense. As a result, more and more skeletons appeared from the ground, and their numbers increased. It wasn't until the power of the light ball had completely dissipated that Di Beichen stopped. With just a command, all the skeleton army surrounded Di Beichen and the others and began to deal with the demonic beasts outside. This was a battle between the skeleton army and the demonic beasts. The most important thing was that these skeletons were not weak at all. Not only were they not defeated by the demonic beasts, they even had some advantages. Seeing this scene, everyone couldn't help but have a trace of joy on their faces. In the past, when they saw the skeleton army, they only had fear in their hearts. Only now, when they saw the skeleton army, their hearts were filled with joy. At this moment, in their eyes, these skeletons not only did not have the usual evil and gloomy horror, but on the contrary, these skeletons were angels that brought them hope. Beichun, how did you do it? Di Xiaofeng looked at Di Beichun in surprise. With the appearance of the skeleton army, they no longer had to hide in the defensive array like before. On the contrary, because of the attack of the skeleton army, their place became more spacious. It's all thanks to Hong Zhuang's reminder. Di Beichun breathed a sigh of relief. Although his handsome face was slightly pale because of overexertion, he was more relaxed. I reminded you? Bailey Hongzhuang was a little surprised. She didn't think about this at all. Di Beichun nodded slightly. You said before that this tree is so evil. I'm afraid that many talented cultivators have fallen here in the past. I thought that if so many cultivators had fallen here, then there must be a lot of bones buried here. So I tried to use the dark energy to summon the skeleton army. Listening to Di Beichun's explanation, everyone understood. Beichun, you're really amazing. Shangguan Yingying gave a thumbs up. If it weren't for you, we would all have died here today. Yeah, I didn't expect the power of darkness to be so strong. Lin Yi's eyes flashed with admiration. Cousin, you have completely changed my view of dark attribute cultivators. This is amazing. Jun Lingxuan and the others stared blankly at Di Beichun, feeling their throats dry up. Such a person was actually their opponent. How can you use the power of darkness to such a level? Chu Yingming looked at Di Beichun in disbelief. The inheritance of the power of darkness had already disappeared for so many years. Logically speaking, no one should have grasped it. Over the years, the power of darkness had declined and was almost gone. When he found out that Di Beichun was a darkness attribute cultivator, he felt that Di Beichun was no threat to him at all. However, the current situation made him realize that the other party was an extremely terrifying existence. Di Beichun faintly glanced at Chu Yingming, but did not pay attention to him. Are you stupid? Why would I tell you this kind of thing? Xiren rolled his eyes and looked at Chu Yingming as if he was looking at a fool. This technique was naturally a secret. Ugh. Chapter 5106. This is the power and terror of the power of darkness. Xiao Sou's face was pale. In the past, she had only heard of the huge impact caused by the dark attribute cultivators hundreds of years ago. However, because it didn't happen in front of her eyes, she didn't think too much about it. Only at this moment, after seeing it for herself, did she understand how terrifying it was. Such an ability was simply beyond her understanding. To be able to summon so many skeleton armies to fight for him, how could ordinary cultivators be his opponent? No wonder the power of darkness is not tolerated. Such an ability is really unacceptable. Hearing Xiao Sou's words, Lin Qianqian stood out immediately, her fair and pretty face full of dissatisfaction. Xiao Sou, what nonsense are you talking about? This tree has always been emitting the power of light. Isn't it also evil? What's so great about the light attribute? Why should the light attribute be sought? After all, Beichun should be despised by everyone because he's a dark attribute cultivator. That's right. Shangguan Yingying stood out as well. Don't forget, if it wasn't for the skeleton army summoned by Beichun, you would have become a corpse by now. Xiao Soa looked at Lin Xianxian and Shangguan Yingying blankly. Such words were indeed hard for her to refute. At this moment, everyone's gazes gradually changed. Indeed, before this, everyone believed that this tree was a divine tree. However, later on, they understood that everything before this tree was just a facade. In fact, it was so dark. Who can guarantee that the light attribute cultivators are all good people? Di Xiaofeng raised his voice. Using a pole to kill an entire boat of people. Isn't this too biased? That's true. Weren't the ruins we went to previously also filled with the power of light? In the end, didn't we almost lose our lives there? Although this power of darkness seems somewhat sinister, its effect is to save all of us. Everyone was discussing animatedly. Their original opinions were also subtly influenced by this and began to change. In my opinion, this power itself is not divided into good and bad. It only depends on the nature of the cultivator who controls the power. Chen Feng's voice resounded. His eyes were shining with wisdom. He had never had any prejudice against the dark attribute. Power was just power. It didn't have any attributes. How it could be used depended on the cultivator. It was only because of the way in which the power was displayed that they were repelled, which was very one-sided. You're right. Didn't Di Beichen help us? Murong Jing nodded. Xiao Sou's expression changed when she saw that everyone was speaking up for Di Beichen. As a cultivator of the Holy Light Assembly, this view was deeply ingrained in her heart. In her opinion, this should be the understanding of every cultivator. However, the current situation made her understand that not everyone thought the same way. Even if she wanted to refute, in the face of so many mouths, it was obviously useless. Beichun, let's take advantage of the fact that the skeleton army is able to resist the demonic beast to chop down this tree. Di Xiaofeng's eyes flickered with a resolute light. It was all because of this damnable tree that he almost lost his life here. Chapter 5107. Following Di Xiaofeng's words, everyone's eyes lit up. That's right, this tree is so evil. If we don't chop it down now, who knows how many cultivators will lose their lives here in the future. Not everyone was as lucky as them to be able to meet Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang. In fact, if it weren't for Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen in this team, they wouldn't have been able to survive even if they had a few lives. One of them had forbidden techniques and was good at medicine, while the other had mastered the power of darkness and was good at formations. Apart from the two of them, it was really difficult to find such an outstanding person. In the next moment, everyone immediately rushed towards the giant tree. They only had the opportunity to do so when the skeleton army was blocking the monsters. Otherwise, no one knew what the tree would do in the next moment. Because of this tree, they had already suffered a few losses. After seeing everyone's eyes filled with murderous intent, the giant tree began to panic. Its thick and flexible vines continuously attacked, blocking everyone from approaching. However, everyone who hated this tree to the extreme did not care about such obstacles at all. They helped each other and quickly approached. Ding, ding, ding. The sound of metal continuously rang out as the vines were cut down by everyone's weapons. As the number of vines decreased, everyone realized that the giant tree's chanting had also become softer. This tree is really intelligent. It can't be that it thinks that as long as it stops chanting, we can pretend that nothing happened before, right? When Xiren's eyes were filled with surprise. Such a smart tree was really unheard of. Unfortunately, it's all too late now. Mo Yunjue's eyes were cold. What was the point of keeping such an evil thing if not destroying it? In the next moment, Mo Yunjue directly slashed at the giant tree with his sword. A faint wail rang out. Then, Mo Yunjue realized that the wound he stabbed was actually bleeding. Seeing this scene, Mo Yunjue's eyes narrowed. This was also the first time he had seen such a situation. This tree is really strange. It makes my hair stand on end. Shangguanning couldn't help but rub her arms. This situation was too scary. She even felt that this tree was not a tree at all, but a person. Don't worry so much, just cut it off. Lin Taxing looked determined. The weirder the giant tree behaved, the more he felt that he should not keep it. The giant tree let out a blood-curdling scream, but no one held back. Blood kept flowing out of the giant tree's wound, but it reminded everyone of the blood the giant tree had absorbed over the years. Trees were supposed to have no blood, but it was bleeding so much. These were probably the cultivators who had died at its hands. Thinking of this, everyone felt even more hateful. Just a little bit more, and all of them would have become sacrifices for this tree. Creak! Boom! Under the rapid cutting of the trees, the giant tree was finally pushed down. After pushing it, everyone discovered that the tree suddenly turned into specks of light and disappeared into the air. Everyone looked at each other, not understanding what was going on. Chapter 5108. A group of beastkins looked at the scene in front of them in confusion. They didn't seem to understand why they were here, nor did they know what happened before. Soon, the beastkins retreated one after another. Without the summon of the giant tree, they had no reason to continue to stay here. Seeing the group of monstrous beasts retreat, everyone couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Their tense bodies suddenly relaxed. Oh my God, it's finally sunny after the rain. Sure enough, cutting down this tree is the only way to break through. Chen Feng looked at Di Beichun with a smile on his handsome face. Di Beichun raised the corners of his lips slightly and nodded with a faint smile. I have never encountered such a terrible situation since I was born. Now I can finally rest. The cultivators didn't care that there were many corpses of beastkins on the ground. They sat on the ground one after another, looking at the blue sky and white clouds. The corners of their lips couldn't help but rise. Just a little bit more, and they would never see tomorrow's sun again. After the crisis was resolved, Di Beichun also lifted the summon. Suddenly, a group of skeletons returned to the ground again. If it weren't for the corpses of beastkins all over the ground and the smell of blood spreading in the air, it was as if nothing had happened. I have been looking forward to coming to this immortal cloud secret realm to gain experience before. Now I feel that this place is really terrible. If I had a choice, I wouldn't come here even if I was beaten to death. Linny shrugged. Even if everything was over now, she still felt a lingering fear. Thinking about it, I'm afraid many people can't forget what happened these days. Haha, unfortunately, there is no regret medicine in this world. Lin Xianxian put one hand on Lin Yi's shoulder. Speaking of which, we have also gained a lot of knowledge this time, right? That's true. Lin Yi nodded with a smile. Then she looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and said, second cousin-in-law, I really admire you guys more and more now. With you guys protecting me in the future, I don't have to worry about someone bullying me. No one dares to bully you on normal days. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled lightly. Almost everyone sat down and rested. They had only been in the immortal cloud mystic realm for a few months, but they felt as though they had been here for a few lifetimes. At this moment, everyone suddenly noticed that at the place where the giant tree disappeared, there was a bright light shining. Dense light energy spread out like the sun, dazzling and eye-catching. Faint bright light energy poured down on everyone, giving off a holy and inviolable aura. In a short period of time, everyone discovered that the injuries on their bodies had been healed. It's light energy again. I'm really afraid of the power of light now. Who knows what dangers will appear in the future? Nothing good happens every time I encounter the power of light. The successive incidents had made everyone fearful. Even though the light energy in front of them had healed their injuries, no one was overly grateful. After all, they had experienced the same thing when the tree was still around. Once bitten by a snake, twice shy. This was exactly the situation they were in now. Look, there's a palace in front of us. As the voice rang out, everyone was surprised to find that a huge palace had appeared before them. Chapter 5109. This must be the original owner's ruins. Bailey Hongzhuang's pitch-black, phoenix-like eyes glowed with joy. The corners of her lips curled into a small, lotus-like smile. Her already delicate features became even more dazzling. Previously, she had been searching for the original owner's ruins. When she had been surrounded by the school of fishes, she had sensed that the ruins were here based on the stone's reaction. However, when she had seen the giant tree, she had looked around but could not find any trace of the ruins. She had felt suspicious about this. She never thought that the ruins would only appear after the giant tree had disappeared. Di Baichen glanced at Bailey Hongzhuang and nodded with a smile. That should be the case. Did the stone sense anything? Yes. Her clear eyes were filled with joy. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was gentle but filled with excitement. Actually, the place that the stone sensed was here. It's just that I haven't been able to find it. Xiao He and Xiao Bai could not hide the joy on their faces when they saw this. All this while they had lost some of their memories. Now, they only hope that they can find their memories in the ruins. Only then would they be able to find their true selves. Even the white dragon could not help but feel overjoyed when he heard this news. Have you really found it? That's right, we've found it. That's great. A gigantic palace stood impressively in their line of sight. A rich light energy spread from the center of the palace. However, this was not the most eye-catching thing. Instead, they were shocked to find that the ruins were intertwined in black and white. Not only was there light energy, but there was also an aura of darkness energy. The black and white palace was unique in its own way. It had an unfamiliar yet unique beauty. The majestic and mighty aura was even more shocking. Seeing this monument, Bailey Hongzhuang was no stranger to it. The palace in her chaos ring had the same style as the ruins before her eyes. Hence, she was even more certain that her chaos ring was an inheritance from the original owner. She never thought that they would be so fated to meet. Then, the group could not be bothered to rest as they immediately approached the palace. They could feel the light energy from the palace. This feeling was exactly the same as the one they had felt from the giant tree. Bailey Hongzhuang felt the power of light, and a thought suddenly appeared in her mind. Baichen, do you think it's possible that the source of light energy was this palace and not that tree? Hearing this, Di Baichen's eyes showed a hint of contemplation, but he nodded as if he suddenly understood. It's very possible. Perhaps it was because the ruins were here, and because there was a concealment array set up, only a little light was released, and that was why the aura was leaked. Because of the nourishment from the power of light, the tree was able to grow into such a huge monster. I didn't feel the slightest bit of light energy when I was chopping down the tree, so it's just a fox borrowing the tiger's might. Xiren suddenly understood. If that's the case, then everything makes sense. Shangguan Yingying sighed. Say, do you think this ruin will be the same as the one we saw before? Di Xiaofeng's eyes were filled with caution and dread. After coming into contact with such things one after another, it was really difficult to remain calm. Chapter 51:10. I think there is no such thing as a free lunch in this immortal cloud secret realm. It's better to be careful. Looking at the black and white palace in front of them, everyone looked at it carefully with a little expectation and a little fear. Although they were lucky enough to escape from the previous crisis, no one knew if their good luck could continue. If it happened again, they might not be able to keep their lives anymore. Xiao Shou felt the rich light power, and she was very sure that this was the purest light power. Although she didn't know what the light relic mentioned before was, she was sure that the master of the relic was absolutely incomparable to the master of the relic in front of her. However, she didn't understand one thing at all. Why does this light power relic have a dark aura? Light and darkness. These were two completely opposite attributes. Listening to Xiao Shou's words, Lin Qianqian also had a hint of ridicule in her eyes. She immediately said, Xiao Shou, didn't you say that light power and dark power are incompatible? Then why do these two attributes exist in this relic? Yeah, you said before that my second cousin-in-law and second cousin would delay her future. But look at this relic. It's completely different from what you said. Lin Yi looked at Xiao Shou. Her slightly raised eyebrows were full of ridicule and disdain. She disliked this girl the most. It's fine that she couldn't enter the eyes of her second cousin, but she still tried to find a way out for herself by belittling her second cousin. It was really hateful. Light and darkness are incompatible, Xiao So emphasized. Then, can you explain it? Xiao So opened her mouth, but she didn't say anything in the end. This situation was really beyond her understanding, so she didn't know how to explain it. You can't explain it, right? Shangwan Yingying rolled her eyes. In my opinion, you are just ignorant. Hey, how can you say that? Xiao Sudong couldn't help but retort. My elder sister is the next holy maiden of light. How can you say that she is ignorant? So what if I say she is ignorant? Shangwan Yingying crossed her arms in front of her chest, looking fearless. Didn't she say that the power of darkness is not accepted? This building is the best proof. Maybe this ruin is the same as the previous one, and it's meant to harm people. Jun Lingshuan suddenly said, shielding Xiao So behind him. Shangwan Yingying frowned when she heard that. She hadn't expected that either. What if it isn't? When Xiren saw that someone dared to diss his wife, so he was naturally the first to stand up. How do we know now? Jun Lingshuan looked a little embarrassed. Obviously, there was no point in continuing to argue. The most important thing was that once they had a disagreement, they were not the opponents of Di Beichun and the others. As they approached the ruins, they realized that the entrance to the ruins was locked. This ruin is locked. Since it's not locked, it means that we can't enter at all. It's useless for us to just watch. Why don't we try to break in by force? Everyone looked at each other and finally decided to try it together. Even with the previous trauma, it still couldn't offset the temptation of the ruins. Chapter 5111. Bailey Hongzhuang quietly looked at the black stone in her hand. From the moment she got close to this place, the stone gave off a strong response. The key was in her hand. Should she open this ruin now? Bailey Hongzhuang subconsciously looked at Di Beichun. She believed that without the key, it would be useless even if everyone tried to break through. As long as they waited for the other cultivators to give up and leave, they would be able to enter on their own. Di Beichun gave Bailey Hongzhuang a look, indicating for her not to make a move for now and to wait for a while. Bailey Hongzhuang understood. Since they were already here, there was indeed no need to rush. Boom, boom, boom. One powerful attack after another landed on the door, but the door didn't budge at all. Seeing this scene, everyone could not help but sigh. Sure enough, this situation was not beyond their expectations. Looks like it's useless. Jun Lingshuan sighed. Do we have to continue waiting here? Continuing to wait might not be useful. Xiao Sudong was a little helpless. Not every ruin is the same. Everyone looked at each other. Many cultivators began to try to find the mechanism. Perhaps the owner of the ruin hid the key nearby. After all, they did not believe that anyone would have the key. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun already understood the situation, so naturally, they did not need to look around like everyone else. All they needed to do was wait. Wait for everyone to give up and leave. However, judging from everyone's eagerness, it was obvious that they would not leave in a short time. Fortunately, the rich energy around the palace was also very beneficial to them. Cultivating here would yield twice the result with half the effort. Even if they had to cultivate here for a while, there was nothing bad about it. Di Xiaofeng and the others saw that Di Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang did not care and sighed in their hearts. These two people were too calm. In the face of such temptation, they were not moved at all. If it were them, they would not be able to do this. Just as everyone was trying their best to find a way in, two bridges suddenly appeared in everyone's line of sight. Two bridges, one black and one white, appeared in front of the ruins. Then, everyone found that their bodies were brought to the back by a strange force. What's going on? Everyone was stunned. The sudden change made them puzzled. Do we have to cross these two bridges to get in? Lin Taxing could not help guessing. The gate of the relic is at the end of the bridge. But we can reach the gate if we just walk through it, Ao Lingxiao said doubtfully. At this moment, there were already cultivators who tried to walk across the bridge without crossing it. However, when they got close, they realized that there was an invisible barrier blocking them from getting any closer. We can't cross. The cultivator looked depressed. Looks like we can only cross these two bridges. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun looked at each other. They immediately stood up and approached the bridge. Of course, when they got closer, more cultivators had already scrambled onto the bridge. However, when many cultivators stood in front of the bridge, they found that they could not cross it at all. Why can't we get on the bridge? Chapter 51:12. For a moment, everyone was completely dumbfounded. Even if they couldn't find the key before, at least they knew what they had to do. But now, this sudden change left them scratching their heads. Xiao Soa looked at the wide white bridge in front of her, her eyes flashing with anticipation and excitement. From the moment she felt the light energy emitted from the ruins, she made up her mind. No matter what, she was going to enter the ruins. She was certain that the inheritance in the ruins was very important to light attribute cultivators. This was an incomparably pure light inheritance. As long as she could obtain it, she would definitely become the true saint of light. It was an indescribable longing, enough to make her forget everything. In the next moment, under everyone's shocked gazes, Xiao Soa walked onto the white bridge with ease. Xiao Soa actually walked onto it. Why can she walk onto it, but we can't? Could it be that this white bridge only allows light attribute cultivators to pass? Everyone looked at each other in dismay. This was the most likely explanation they could think of. After seeing Xiao Soa walk onto the bridge of light, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately sped up and approached the bridge. Standing in front of the bridge, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun looked at each other before the two of them walked onto the bridge together. However, Di Beichun stepped onto the bridge of the darkness attribute. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and Nangong walk onto the bridge, everyone immediately understood that their previous guess was correct. Only light and darkness attribute cultivators can pass through. Doesn't this mean that this ruin has nothing to do with us? Nangong Yuqing frowned. If he had thought that this ruin might be another trap, he had completely dispelled that idea. This kind of selection must be for the true inheritance of the ruins. As Bailey Hongzhuang also stepped onto the bridge of light, in front of everyone's eyes, 3 other cultivators also stepped onto the bridge. These 3 cultivators were also of the light attribute, but their previous performance was not as outstanding as that of Bailey Hongzhuang. Although the proportion of light attribute cultivators was small, there were still a lot of cultivators who had entered this time. On the other hand, apart from Di Beichun, there was no one else on the Bridge of Darkness. It was not because there were no dark attribute cultivators among the various forces. Instead, it was because cultivators of this attribute had always been despised. It was simply impossible for them to obtain a slot to enter the Immortal Cloud's secret realm. Xiaohei, do you have any impression of this bridge? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly. Xiaohei was the original owner's contracted beast, so she might know something. However, Xiaohei only shook her head and said, I don't know. All right. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled helplessly and continued forward. Soon, she discovered that her footsteps were obstructed. Taking a closer look, she discovered that a stone tablet had appeared in her line of sight on the other side of the Bridge of Light. That's the Sacred Light Tablet. Xiao Soa looked at the stone tablet that had suddenly appeared with an incredulous look in her eyes. Chapter 51:13. Not only Xiao Soa, but the other 3 cultivators could not contain their ecstasy as well. Such a treasure has actually appeared. This is really a great opportunity for us. At the same time, Di Xiaofeng and the others' eyes were filled with shock when they saw the Sacred Light Tablet and Sacred Darkness Tablet appear at the same time. Sacred attribute tablets of this level are treasures that can only be encountered by chance. I've only heard that such treasures exist in the world, but I never thought that I would see one with my own eyes. Lin Taxing exclaimed. It said that this sacred attribute tablet can help cultivators comprehend attribute power. Moreover, because the sacred attribute tablet is a miraculous object in the world, the power on it is the purest. As long as one has the chance to comprehend it, one's understanding of attribute power will be much stronger than before. Beichin and the others are really lucky this time. As long as they have the chance to comprehend it in front of the sacred attribute tablet, even if they can't enter the ruins, it's still worth it. Di Xiaofeng's face was full of smiles. Although he did not have such good luck, It was already very good that his younger brother and sister-in-law could have such luck. With Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang's talent, they would definitely become stronger after comprehending it. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the sacred attribute tablet that had suddenly appeared in front of her. Although she did not know what it was, she could tell that it must be an incredible treasure just by looking at the excited expressions of Xiao Sou and the others. As her gaze landed on the holy steel of light, she could feel the power of the origin of light emanating from the steel. A feeling of enlightenment appeared in her mind. It was as if the law of light that she had always been unable to understand had suddenly been touched. It gradually became clear from its initial blurry state. I never thought that the sacred light tablet would have such a powerful effect. A look of pleasant surprise appeared on Bailey Hongzhuang's exquisite face. She immediately quickened her pace, wanting to get closer to the sacred light tablet as soon as possible. Not only Bailey Hongzhuang, but Xiao Sou and the others also had the same idea. Of course, it would be best if they could take the sacred light tablet away. That would be a huge gain. However, just as they were about to get closer, they realized that it was extremely difficult to take a step forward. After walking for a certain distance, they found it difficult to advance any further. Among them, Xiao Sou walked at the front, Bailey Hongzhuang was second, and the other three cultivators were even further behind. Master, I'm afraid that this bridge can't be crossed directly. Instead, it tests the cultivator's understanding of the power of light. Xiao Hei's voice rang out. If you don't understand it well enough, you won't be able to cross this bridge. Upon hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Xiao Hei's method coincided with her thoughts. Thinking about it, this should be a test from the master of the ruins. When the cultivators outside saw this scene, their eyes lit up with understanding. Although they did not walk on the bridge, they could roughly guess what was going on from the expressions of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. This bridge that had suddenly appeared was naturally not something that could be casually crossed. Otherwise, what was the point of its appearance? It looks like Xiao Sou's understanding of the power of light is still better than hers. That's right. Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao Sou are still some distance apart. That's where the difference lies. Chapter 51:14. My eldest sister is the next saint of light. Her understanding of the power of the light attribute is naturally incomparable to that of an ordinary person. Xiao Sudong's face was filled with pride as he looked at Shangwan, Yingying, and the others. Previously, he had been suppressed by these girls until he could not speak. Now, he finally had a chance to refute. Some people think that they're great just because they have the light attribute. But what's the use if their understanding is not deep enough? The group of Shao clan cultivators instantly felt elated, and all the depression they felt from being suppressed earlier dissipated at this moment. In terms of bickering, they were indeed no match for the Di family. However, their strength was now so obvious that no one could deny it. Shangwan, Yingying, and the others were dissatisfied when they heard this. However, the gap between them was indeed there, and they could not deny it. Xiao Sudong, don't be too proud. Hongzhuang has just arrived in the upper realm not long ago. The time she has been in contact with the power of light is much shorter than Xiao Sou. As long as our Hongzhuang has some time, it will not be a problem for her to surpass Xiao Sou. Shangwan Yingying lifted her chin slightly. Her fair face was filled with confidence. She knew about Bailey Hongzhuang's talent and comprehension ability. She did not believe that she would lose to Xiao Sou. It's useless for you to say this. Anyway, we can't compete now. Xiao Sudong shrugged. He was still proud of himself. The other cultivators did not choose to leave after seeing this scene. They also wanted to know who the final winner would be. It was rare to have such a lively scene. It was a little more time. Moreover, the elemental energy in the surroundings was so dense. It was a good thing to cultivate here. Xiao Sou's eyes flashed with pride when she saw Bailey Hongzhuang behind her. She was really worried that Bailey Hongzhuang would be stronger than her. Fortunately, the situation was not as serious as she thought. Bailey Hongzhuang did not miss Xiao Sou's expression. However, this was not important to her. After realizing that she could not move forward, she sat down on the bridge and stared at the light sacred tablet in front of her. She began to comprehend it. Such a rare opportunity naturally had to be grasped. Bailey Hongzhuang was surrounded by pure light energy. Looking at the holy tablet of light, Bailey Hongzhuang could feel the existence of the rules. Her understanding of the power of light was not deep enough, but now, it was as if a brand new door had been opened for her. She hungrily comprehended and absorbed the knowledge. Compared to Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichen's situation was different. Under everyone's shocked gazes, Di Beichen walked up to the darkness sacred monument and began to comprehend it. If it was in the past, he would naturally not have been able to do this. However, after obtaining the inheritance of the force of darkness, his comprehension of the force of darkness was much stronger than before. This was because he had received the inheritance of the Dark Saint. After everyone saw Di Beichen's performance, they immediately understood. No wonder Di Beichen could summon an army of skeletons to help him in battle. It turned out that his understanding of the power of darkness was so deep. Time passed slowly. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. In these 3 days, Xiao Shou had tried to advance 2 steps. However, Bailey Hongzhuang remained in the same place and showed no signs of advancing. Seeing the gap between the two gradually widening, a trace of anxiety appeared on everyone's faces.